Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became Shouto's summer guest part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story lydiasgrace from 𝗬𝗏. So let's start the video. London. 2xxx Shouto Todoroki slumped into the nearest seat in the hotel lobby, drained from the 13-hour flight from Tokyo, the train ride from the airport, and trudging through the rain for 9 blocks, because his uncle 𝗧𝗵𝗲 insisted they could make it before the storm started. They couldn't. His cousin, Ochako, was giggling next to him and transferring the mud from her shoes to the ornate floor. She was 8, like him, and the only person besides his Aka-san and Sobo that he was especially close with. No matter the situation, she always managed to put a smile on his face. Even now he felt his lips quirking up, despite the fact that they were in London to make sure he wouldn't go blind. They'd walked 5 blocks in the rain, and they were soaked to the bone. His father and uncle bickered as they walked up to the front desk to check in. His father was furious at 𝗧𝗵𝗲 because he was the one who prevented them from getting a cab, and 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was steadfast in defending his decision. Uncle 𝗧𝗵𝗲 usually backed down first, despite the fact that he could easily out-yell his father. It made Shouto wish his other uncle was there. Uncle Shouto would have made things more interesting. The pair of adults stopped at the front desk. The 2 clerks eyed them, but didn't say anything. His father spoke up. "I'm Enji Todoroki. I have a reservation for the Lancaster suite. We spoke on the phone to confirm yesterday." The workers shared looks, and almost immediately the man working the computer claimed, "Sorry, don't seem to have your reservation." Immediately, Shouto picked up on what was going on. Racism was rare in the modern age. Quirk-based discrimination was much more common, but it wasn't unheard of. Shouto bit back a smirk. Not only were the clerks racist, but they weren't recognizing his father as Japan's #2 hero, #4 on the global scale according to Heroes magazine. This would not end well for any of them. The clerks' biases weren't helped by the fact that they were such a strange group, either. Out of hero uniform, Enji just looked eternally angry and frightening. 𝗧𝗵𝗲's transition lenses made it look like he was wearing sunglasses inside. Shouto had a large bandage over his left eye, and Ochako was smearing mud on the floor. A bald man stepped out of the back office, and although his physical appearance gave no hints to his quirk, the rapidly shifting facial expressions of the staff hinted towards some form of telepathy. The man finally turned to the guests and spoke. "Good evening. I'm Reginald Ormsby, hotel manager. Is there a problem?" Enji huffed through his nose. Ochako and Shouto shared a look. She had now picked up on the situation. It wouldn't end well for either party if the man didn't get his way, and fast. Enji was already upset they had to travel to London in the first place. But one of the best eye doctors in the world lived there, and Shouto needed his sight in his left eye to be perfect so he could continue his training. "I'm Enji Todoroki. My family and I would like to be shown to our suite. We've had a long flight." Ormsby took the group in and made a quick decision. "We're fully booked, sir. You must have made a mistake. I'm sure you and your lovely family can find other accommodations. May I suggest you explore Chinatown?" Letting out a slow breath, Shouto closed his unbandaged eye. That was the final nail in the coffin for the hotel manager. "You can rot in hell, you worthless piece of she." Enji's famous fire beard popped onto his face, shoulders smoking. Uncle 𝗧𝗵𝗲 took initiative and put an arm on Enji's arm to keep him from doing anything rash. "Call Chiyo." Enji scowled at the notion, but it was either call Chiyo or find another place to stay that was still up to their standards last minute. Neither was a good option, especially because Enji was on thin ice with Shouto's Sobo after what happened with his mother 2 weeks before. His father loved to act high and mighty, but he couldn't use US funds to do anything without approval from Chiyo Shuzenji herself. And Enji would never use his own money for something like this. "May I use your phone?" Enji finally grit out, managing a semi-polite smile. "It's the least you could do." Ormsby smiled, and before Shouto could blink he was standing under the pavilion outside while his father raged in the phone booth. Thunder roared, and his father's screams were still louder than anything else. Sobo could hold her own, Shouto knew that. But he also knew she'd never let her grandchildren get stuck in the rain because of a couple of racists. With a final burst of flames in the booth, scorching the sides, Enji stepped out. His skin emitted large amounts of steam as his body was forced to cool down in the rain. He passed the other three at the pavilion, storming inside. "Mr. Todoroki, I must ask you to leave, or I'll have to call the police." "Go ahead. Let's see if they arrest Japan's #2 hero." The manager's eyes widened as he finally realized who Enji was. Took him long enough. The temporary fire beard was a major hint earlier. The elevator dinged and out stepped an old man dressed in an expensive-looking bathrobe, beelining for the group of four. "Lord Calthorpe, my apologies for this disturbance." "Enji, I just got off the phone with Chiyo." Calthorpe turned to Ormsby, having ignored his previous apology. "Get the Lancaster suite ready. Now." "Surely you're joking, sir." "I assure you, I'm not. As of this evening, my family's long history as custodians of the Calthorpe is ended. I am selling the hotel to my dear friends, the Shuzenji family of Tokyo." Lord Calthorpe was as delighted as Enji was smug. "Meet the new lord of the house, Enji Todoroki. Join me for a toast." "We'd be delighted." Enji turned to Ormsby, smirking maliciously. "Get a mop, then get out of my sight." Enji and Hisashi followed Lord Calthorpe. Ochako and Shouto exchanged small giggles and followed their parents. For a moment, Shouto forgot why they were there in the first place. He'd have to thank his Sobo over the phone later. She was his favorite hero. New York, 12 years later. "How are you, Izuku, my boy?" "Good, all my sorry, Toshinori-san." Izuku Midoriya chuckled nervously, gripping his cup of coffee tightly. He wondered if he'd ever stopped slipping up. "What's up? I'm assuming there's a reason you wanted to meet while Mom was at work." The blonde smiled, nodding. "You're a smart boy, Izuku, which is exactly why I called you here. How are your classes going?" "Good." Izuku intoned, confused. "Because I'm doing my internship along with advanced studies. I should get a job as soon as I graduate, which is taking a lot of stress away from graduating." "Good, good." Izuku's stepfather trailed off, then came back after a few seconds of awkward silence. "You've been my stepson for 2 years now, Izuku, but I'd like you to know that I see you as my own." Toshinori Yagi, formerly known as the #1 hero worldwide, All Might, was Izuku's stepfather, and Izuku still couldn't believe it. It had been 2 years since Toshinori and his mom had gotten married when he was 18, and the hero worship had yet to disappear entirely. All Might and his mother met in California, while All Might was in America for a year. She was freshly immigrated and Izuku was an infant. They got along well and fell in love, but eventually, All Might had to return to Japan. They swore to find each other again someday. After years of peace, decreasing crime rates, and dominating national and international charts, All Might slowly pulled away from the hero scene and finally announced his retirement. His golden age was over, and his physical age was catching up to him. The world didn't want to admit it, but they could all see the cracks forming in All Might's armor. It was a media circus for months, but All Might was sure to pick a good time to step back. Crime rates only rose 5% after his retirement thanks to several plans put into place, and things had been relatively stable since. Toshinori then moved to America and contacted Izuku Midoriya in New York. They made good on their promises to each other, and got married after dating for a few months to see if they were still compatible. They were. And they were the cutest couple Izuku had ever seen. Toshinori immediately treated Izuku like his own, and Izuku found it slightly easier to differentiate All Might from Toshinori thanks to their vastly different body types, a function of his quirk that Izuku had been excited to learn about. "Throughout these past 2 years, not only have you shown that you have the heart of a hero, but the mind of one too. You were born quirkless, and because of that, you know what it means to be weak. I know you'll never take advantage of strength." Izuku stayed silent, trying to figure out what was going on. His quirklessness had been devastating as a child, as all he'd wanted to do was be a hero just like All Might. He'd come to terms with his fate eventually, his attention shifting to helping others in different ways like teaching, which was his current degree path. America wasn't as discriminatory against the quirkless like other countries, which was extremely lucky for Izuku as he knew his life could have been much harder had his mother stayed in Japan. Now, however, he was content. His hero worship had never faded, but it had become easier to focus on other things. 10 years ago, I got into a fight that made me weak. As you know, I had to have my stomach removed, and it was because of the injuries I sustained during that battle. That is what led to my retirement. I held off finding a successor because I wasn't sure who would be able to handle the responsibility. Until now. This is why I have come to the conclusion that you can become a hero. Izuku Midoriya, I am bestowing my quirk onto you. Static buzzed in Izuku's brain. Did he just say bestow his quirk? But quirks were hereditary, and Izuku was quirkless, and that was how he'd stay until the day he died. Now the greatest hero in history was offering the greatest quirk in history to him, so he could become a hero. What? Was all Izuku managed, his brain going too fast for his mouth. Tashinori laughed, deep and full. Sipping from his coffee, he elaborated on his confusing statement. My quirk is called One for All. It's able to be passed down through DNA transfer. A quirk passed from generation to generation, becoming more powerful with each owner as they add their quirk to the mix. Toshi shifted to his All Might form, something he could only hold for an hour a day now. But do not fear, for I was quirkless as a boy as well, and I was able to make the power my own. I have faith that you will learn to use this quirk and become the next symbol of peace. Izuku's mind went full force all at once. All the thoughts that stacked up while his brain was on static practically slapped him in the face. Wait a minute. You can pass on your quirk, and you want to give it to me so I can become a hero? Correct. I understand it is a lot to take in, but I will be here to guide you the entire way. So, Izuku, my boy, do you accept my quirk? Will I still be able to teach? Izuku would be disappointed to find out he got halfway through a major only to have to switch. In Japan, it'd be too late for him already. They started learning about heroics in high school. America started in college. Had the stars aligned for him because of that? Absolutely. You'll have to go back to college for your classes in hero work. But that doesn't mean you can't achieve teaching the next generation either. Many heroes in Japan do both, and I know you do well balancing both responsibilities. I'll be with you every step of the way, and I'll do everything I can to support you. Your hero courses will take time that you can use to teach. Okay, I accept. It'd be an honor to inherit your quirk and become a hero. His childhood dream come true. His heart was ready to explode, and it was a miracle he wasn't crying already. Chances were he'd start any minute and not be able to stop for at least an hour. Good. I'll give you my quirk now so you can get used to the feeling, but understand that you cannot use it until you go through my all-American dream plan to prepare your body for the backlash. It will take time and will be difficult whilst balancing your normal life, but it's essential if you want good control of One for All. I understand. Unless you tell me I can, I won't use the quirk, and I'll do everything I can to balance my training and studies. I'll do anything I can to become a hero. A fire long, though extinguished, had come ablaze again within Izuku as he said this. It was not too late for him to become a hero. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he wouldn't squander it. Good. All Might plucked a golden hair from his head. Eat this. Huh. Play to win chapter text. Shouto and Izuku staring down his opponent. Izuku could practically hear dramatic music playing in the background. His heartbeat thrummed insistently in his ears, and he thought over his next actions carefully. Strategy was always his forte. One wrong move and he'd lose, but he was fighting to win. I'm all in. Izuku pushed the rest of his chips to the middle of the table. Are you? Fold. Humming, Izuku flipped his cards. Nothing good. Nothing. This whole time you had nothing. Izuku pressed the button on a small remote, and the lights flicked back on. Another button, and the two TV screens behind him presented their last subject of the year, game theory. Izuku wanted to do something fun before everyone left for the summer, and this had always been a hit with his students. Alright, so, how did I beat Curtis so very, very badly? Well, I know for a fact that Curtis is cheap. The class laughed. So, he's not playing using logic or math, but using his psychology. Our brains so hate the idea of losing something that's valuable to us that we abandon all rational thought and make some really poor decisions. So Curtis wasn't playing to win. He was playing not to lose. Izuku picked up a chip and tossed it to Curtis. Here. Put it towards a haircut. I expect to see something shorter next year. It was amazing teaching all of you this year. If you're moving on to the advanced course, I'll see you there for the first semester. And remember, plus ultra. There you go. Izuku's students filed out of the room, chattering excitedly about their final lesson and summer plans. Izuku sighed happily. The next school year, he'd only be there for the fall semester before his licensing test. Then he'd be a hero. A dream he'd given up on years ago would finally, blessedly, come true. It took 4 years of hard work and broken bones before Izuku ended up where he was. But he wouldn't trade those struggles for the world. He'd become a teacher because it was another way to be someone's hero, passing on wisdom and being a guiding hand. And economics came easy to him, all probability and strategic thinking. But now his dream, his true dream, was coming true. And on top of that, within those years of training, he met who'd soon become his partner on and off the hero field. Hey, Shu, let me grab my bag and we'll be good. Izuku greeted said partner, rushing to his office to grab his bag and meet Shouto at the poker table. He must have snuck in when the students were leaving. Want to play around? Shouto chuckled, separating the cards and chips to put them away. If you want to lose, then sure. Izuku laughed, opening the box so Shouto could transfer everything. While Izuku understood how to play to win, he couldn't beat Shouto's raw talent. Putting the poker box in his office, Izuku didn't bother cleaning up further. He'd have all summer to come back and prepare for the new school year. After putting the game away, the pair left the school to hail a cab and take it to their favorite cafe for an afternoon date. How are your classes? Shouto asked after they placed their orders at the countertop. Fine. I'm happy that the summer portion is all traditional courses online. All that physical training was nice, but it's exhausting having to teach the next day, especially when Toshinori is trying to keep me on his dream plan, too. At least your extra training with Gran Torino has paid off. No broken bones in over a year, Shouto teased lightly, having met Izuku right around the time he was finally figuring out how not to destroy his body. I've seen you improve every time we spar together. You mean at the Y that kind of smells? Shouto frowned childishly at the insult to his favorite gym, and Izuku couldn't hold back his laugh. I'm kidding. Thank you, Shu. I'm really excited to be on the field next year. Then we'll be an official team. Shouto and Deku. I can't wait to be a hero with you. The pair got their coffee, and Izuku got his plate of taiyaki as well. Shouto insisted he didn't want anything to eat when they ordered, so Izuku only got one. He soon came to regret that. However, when Shouto ate nearly half his dish in small increments played off as tiny bites. If you wanted one, you could have ordered it. I'm fine. You say that, but then you always end up eating half my dessert. This is celebratory for the end of the school year. I don't know what you're talking about. I've only had a little. Haven't you seen how small my bites are? Shouto's smile was subtly smug. Sure, okay. Can we have one more of these, please? Thank you. Shouto cleared his throat, shifting in his seat. How'd you like to take a trip east? Brow raised in confusion, Izuku asked, like the East Village. Further. Queens, Shouto gave the slightest smile and shake of his head. Tokyo. Izuku sputtered in shock. Tokyo, Tokyo. There were so many other, closer, places that they could go to travel east, but Tokyo. It was his mother's birthplace, where his father died, and where the only true father he ever knew had formed a new era for heroes. Not only that, but it was where Shouto's family currently resided. So if he was taking him to Tokyo, that meant, muttering, Izuku, Shouto placed a gentle hand on Izuku's shoulder. Tenya's wedding is coming up. We've been dating for almost 2 years, and I think it's time people meet the man who helped me realize that my power belongs to me. I'm Tenya's best man, so I'm required to go, and I'm scared I'll kill someone if you don't come along. Are you sure about this? Izuku pushed his final piece of taiyaki around his plate. Absolutely. You weren't planning on teaching this summer, and you said so yourself that your hero courses are online. I just don't want to get in the way of your best man duties, be a distraction. What distraction? The wedding would be the first week we're there. The rest of the summer is ours to do what we want. We can travel around Japan, and to nearby islands, and you can visit that loud friend from college. Kaken. He's been saying he'd kill me if I don't come over soon. A bit concerning, but there you go. Not only that, but I know you'll love everything related to heroes there. It is the hero capital of the world, after all. And it's a good place to start for traveling. China is close, the Philippines, Singapore, and even more. It's time Asia met future #1 hero, Izuku Midoriya. Shouto was becoming more and more un-Shouto-like as he tried to convince Izuku to go home with him. The man couldn't deny that he was thrilled at the thought of going to Japan and exploring Asia for 10 weeks. He'd never been there, but he filled up a notebook about Japan because it was so full of heroes. Not only that, but from an economist standpoint, he knew even more about Tokyo itself. It had transformed from a small, traditional city to one of the most expensive cities in the world in a few decades. It would be fascinating to see up close, especially with Shouto as his guide. Yet something about the trip made Izuku a little apprehensive, and he couldn't stop his mind from pondering the deeper implications. Shouto made it seem so spontaneous, but knowing him, it was likely planned out extensively. They'd been together for nearly 2 years, and now he was inviting him on a trip to visit his hometown, to attend his closest friend's wedding, no less. Did it mean what he thought it did? I'll have to check with the dean to see when I'm needed back, and make sure we won't have any last-minute classes that aren't online, but let's do it. NG hero work had never been easy. It was such a simple and well-known statement. Yet the world would never truly understand how hard everything was in the hero world. NG Todoroki had become the #1 hero 3 years ago. 3 years holding the title hadn't done much to improve his desire to surpass All Might. All Might retired. He gave up and passed down the mantle. But that wasn't how NG wanted it. He wanted to beat All Might and prove how much better he was while they were both on the field, so he could rub it in All Might's face. Instead, the legend stepped down and left NG with a legacy he felt he could never catch up to. What's more is that his sidekicks could be so infuriating. They were supposed to be discussing strategies for a drug bust planned for the next day, and all his sidekicks were talking about was the gossip going around the hero circles that his son, his prized possession, was bringing his boyfriend home for Tenya Ida's wedding. I heard from Mount Lady that his name is Izuku Midoriya. That's All Might's stepson, isn't it? It would make sense. They probably met at a hero function in America and hit it off. I thought he was coming alone. Did you know, Endeavor-san? NG frowned, distracting himself with the building schematics in front of him. Shouto has dated many men, it's hard to keep track. It was a blatant lie and everyone in the room knew it. Shouto wasn't one to date around. NG was still slightly bitter over Shouto's sexuality. Not because he was gay in the first place, there were people with quirks that could help him produce an heir either way, but because Shouto never directly told him. NG had to find out from 𝗵𝗲 after she mentioned offhand that Shouto had found a boyfriend in America. That boyfriend was likely Izuku Midoriya. NG put the timeline together 1.5 years ago. 𝗵𝗲 told him about the boyfriend, and days after that Shouto called and stated that he'd be coming home for a week to train with NG for his fire side, something he hadn't used in nearly 20 years, because someone close to him explained that it was Shouto's quirk, not NG's. Likely, he came to the realization because of Izuku. Any spawn of All Might, biological or not, would be self-righteous enough to tell Shouto he was his own person. Due to this, NG immediately held a dislike for Izuku. All it took was a statement from a random boy that his son liked to get him to come into his full power. And that boy just so happened to be the stepson of the man he hated more than any villain, All Might. Apparently, he stays out of the public light just like All Might and his new wife do, so no one knows a lot about him. But there's a rumor going around that he was born quirkless, and just recently got one a few years ago. A bit strange, isn't it? It's like a 1 in a million chance to get a quirk after the cutoff at 5. If you want, Endeavor-san, one of us can look more into it. Or one of the stealthier sidekicks, Vernon offered, picking up on her boss' growing annoyance. NG's frown deepened. I think we should return to the strategy. Volt, what do you have? Tomorrow the deal will go down at midnight. Both parties that we've been searching for will be present heroes. Weekly said that he was seen in a hero training class. He could be the next All Might if that's true. NG resisted the urge to flip the desk and tackle his loudmouth sidekick to the ground. He raised Shouto, trained him, so he could become the next #1 hero after Enji retired in the next few years. Now they were saying that this nobody could bring down everything he worked so hard for. If he's bringing him home, it must be serious. Enji pinched the bridge of his nose. I need to make a call. Continue on without me. Izuku and Shouto told Izuku that he already had the tickets printed out. They'd be leaving on Monday, giving Izuku the weekend to prepare. That preparation would likely include seeing his mom to probably go shopping for new clothes that would impress Shouto's family. Shouto's phone vibrated, and when he pulled it out of his pocket he frowned. It's my father. Do you mind if I take this? Go ahead. Izuku took the first bite out of the second taiyaki he ordered for Shouto. Save some for me, Shouto requested, stepping into an empty corner before answering. Father, is something wrong? Does something have to be wrong for me to call? The majority of the time, yes. Fair. Are you bringing Izuku Midoriya to the wedding? We were just talking about that. How did you know? Shouto's eyes trailed around the restaurant, and he spotted a Japanese woman hurrying out of the cafe. Ah, a fan spread the word. We're looking forward to having you home, and your room is all ready. For you. Izuku and I will be staying together, father. I see. Well, per Fayumi's insistence, I'm having the house redone to modernize it. It's not ready for guests. If Izuku comes, I think he'll be more comfortable in a hotel. Shouto held back to the urge to cuss out his father. Despite the world's assumptions that he was one of the most gentlemanly heroes, he did have a mouth on him. Turning back to the counter, Shouto's mood immediately improved when he saw Izuku stuffing his face with the taiyaki. Payback. Nice try, father. I'll be renting a hotel room. We'll argue less if we aren't in the same house, anyway. Ending the call before his father could argue further, Shouto returned to his seat next to Izuku and pointed out the small piece of dessert that remained. I saved you a piece, Izuku smiled cheekily. You did you? A very small piece at that. Shouto still ate the piece and smiled. Thank you very much. How's your dad? Is everything okay? Izuku's eyes shone with concern, and Shouto almost blurted out how much he loved him. Izuku was aware of his messed up family life. Of his mother, his jerk father, and of his oldest brother disappearing. He accepted it all and was more than willing to support Shouto through it. Yep. Just called to check in about the trip. Shouto dismissed Izuku's concern. I'm glad you agreed to go. Izuku leaned in and kissed Shouto quickly. I am too. Play to win chapter text. Shouto and Izuku staring down his opponent. Izuku could practically hear dramatic music playing in the background. His heartbeat thrummed insistently in his ears, and he thought over his next actions carefully. Strategy was always his forte. One wrong move and he'd lose, but he was fighting to win. I'm all in. Izuku pushed the rest of his chips to the middle of the table. Are you? Fold. Humming, Izuku flipped his cards. Nothing good. Nothing. This whole time you had nothing. Izuku pressed the button on a small remote, and the lights flicked back on. Another button, and the two TV screens behind him presented their last subject of the year, game theory. Izuku wanted to do something fun before everyone left for the summer, and this had always been a hit with his students. Alright, so, how did I beat Curtis so very, very badly? Well, I know for a fact that Curtis is cheap. The class laughed, so, he's not playing using logic or math, but using his psychology. Our brains so hate the idea of losing something that's valuable to us, that we abandon all rational thought and make some really poor decisions. So Curtis wasn't playing to win. He was playing not to lose. Izuku picked up a chip and tossed it to Curtis. Here. Put it towards a haircut. I expect to see something shorter next year. It was amazing teaching all of you this year. If you're moving on to the advanced course, I'll see you there for the first semester. And remember, plus ultra. There you go. Izuku's students filed out of the room, chattering excitedly about their final lesson and summer plans. Izuku sighed happily. The next school year, he'd only be there for the fall semester before his licensing test. Then he'd be a hero. A dream he'd given up on years ago would finally, blessedly, come true. It took 4 years of hard work and broken bones before Izuku ended up where he was. But he wouldn't trade those struggles for the world. He'd become a teacher because it was another way to be someone's hero, passing on wisdom and being a guiding hand. And economics came easy to him. All probability and strategic thinking. But now his true dream was coming true. And on top of that, within those years of training, he met who'd soon become his partner on and off the hero field. "Hey, Shu, let me grab my bag and we'll be good," Izuku greeted said partner, rushing to his office to grab his bag and meet Shouto at the poker table. He must have snuck in when the students were leaving. "Want to play around?" Shouto chuckled, separating the cards and chips to put them away. "If you want to lose, then sure." Izuku laughed, opening the box so Shouto could transfer everything. While Izuku understood how to play to win, he couldn't beat Shouto's raw talent. Putting the poker box in his office, Izuku didn't bother cleaning up further. He'd have all summer to come back and prepare for the new school year. After putting the game away, the pair left the school to hail a cab and take it to their favorite cafe for an afternoon date. "How are your classes?" Shouto asked after they placed their orders at the countertop. "Fine. I'm happy that the summer portion is all traditional courses online. All that physical training was nice, but it's exhausting having to teach the next day, especially when Toshinori is trying to keep me on his dream plan, too. At least your extra training with Gran Torino has paid off. No broken bones in over a year," Shouto teased lightly, having met Izuku right around the time he was finally figuring out how not to destroy his body. "I've seen you improve every time we spar together." "You mean at the why that kind of smells?" Shouto frowned childishly at the insult to his favorite gym, and Izuku couldn't hold back his laugh. "I'm kidding. Thank you, Shu. I'm really excited to be on the field next year. Then we'll be an official team. Shouto and Deku. I can't wait to be a hero with you." The pair got their coffee, and Izuku got his plate of taiyaki as well. Shouto insisted he didn't want anything to eat when they ordered, so Izuku only got one. He soon came to regret that, however, when Shouto ate nearly half his dish in small increments played off as tiny bites. "If you wanted one, you could have ordered it." "I'm fine." "You say that, but then you always end up eating half my dessert. This is celebratory for the end of the school year." "I don't know what you're talking about. I've only had a little. Haven't you seen how small my bites are?" Shouto's smile was subtly smug. "Sure, okay. Can we have one more of these, please? Thank you." Shouto cleared his throat, shifting in his seat. "How'd you like to take a trip east?" Brow raised in confusion, Izuku asked. "Like the East Village?" "Further. Queens." Shouto gave the slightest smile and shake of his head. "Tokyo." Izuku sputtered in shock. "Tokyo? Tokyo?" There were so many other, closer, places that they could go to travel east. But Tokyo. It was his mother's birthplace, where his father died, and where the only true father he ever knew had formed a new era for heroes. Not only that, but it was where Shouto's family currently resided. So if he was taking him to Tokyo, that meant, muttering, "Izuku." Shouto placed a gentle hand on Izuku's shoulder. "Tenya's wedding is coming up. We've been dating for almost 2 years. And I think it's time people meet the man who helped me realize that my power belongs to me. I'm Tenya's best man, so I'm required to go. And I'm scared I'll kill someone if you don't come along." "Are you sure about this?" Izuku pushed his final piece of taiyaki around his plate. "Absolutely. You weren't planning on teaching this summer, and you said so yourself that your hero courses are online. I just don't want to get in the way of your best man duties, be a distraction." "What distraction?" "The wedding would be the first week we're there. The rest of the summer is ours to do what we want. We can travel around Japan, and to nearby islands, and you can visit that loud friend from college. Kaken. He's been saying he'd kill me if I don't come over soon. A bit concerning, but there you go. Not only that, but I know you'll love everything related to heroes there. It is the hero capital of the world, after all. And it's a good place to start for traveling. China is close, the Philippines, Singapore, and even more. It's time Asia met future #1 hero, Izuku Midoriya." Shouto was becoming more and more un-Shouto-like as he tried to convince Izuku to go home with him. The man couldn't deny that he was thrilled at the thought of going to Japan and exploring Asia for 10 weeks. He'd never been there, but he filled up a notebook about Japan because it was so full of heroes. Not only that, but from an economist's standpoint, he knew even more about Tokyo itself. It had transformed from a small, traditional city to one of the most expensive cities in the world in a few decades. It would be fascinating to see up close, especially with Shouto as his guide. Yet something about the trip made Izuku a little apprehensive, and he couldn't stop his mind from pondering the deeper implications. Shouto made it seem so spontaneous, but knowing him, it was likely planned out extensively. They'd been together for nearly 2 years, and now he was inviting him on a trip to visit his hometown, to attend his closest friend's wedding, no less. Did it mean what he thought it did? I'll have to check with the dean to see when I'm needed back, and make sure we won't have any last-minute classes that aren't online, but let's do it. NG hero work had never been easy. It was such a simple and well-known statement. Yet the world would never truly understand how hard everything was in the hero world. Inoue Todoroki had become the #1 hero 3 years ago. 3 years holding the title hadn't done much to improve his desire to surpass All Might. All Might retired. He gave up and passed down the mantle, but that wasn't how NG wanted it. He wanted to beat All Might and prove how much better he was while they were both on the field, so he could rub it in All Might's face. Instead, the legend stepped down and left NG with a legacy he felt he could never catch up to. What's more is that his sidekicks could be so infuriating. They were supposed to be discussing strategies for a drug bust planned for the next day. And all his sidekicks were talking about was the gossip going around the hero circles that his son, his prized possession, was bringing his boyfriend home for Tenya Ada's wedding. I heard from Mount Lady that his name is Izuku Midoriya. That's All Might's stepson, isn't it? It would make sense. They probably met at a hero function in America and hit it off. I thought he was coming alone. Did you know, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏? NG frowned, distracting himself with the building schematics in front of him. Shouto has dated many men. It's hard to keep track. It was a blatant lie and everyone in the room knew it. Shouto wasn't one to date around. NG was still slightly bitter over Shouto's sexuality. Not because he was gay in the first place. There were people with quirks that could help him produce an heir either way, but because Shouto never directly told him. NG had to find out from Fayumi after she mentioned offhand that Shouto had found a boyfriend in America. That boyfriend was likely Izuku Midoriya. NG put the timeline together a year and a half ago. Fayumi told him about the boyfriend. And days after that, Shouto called and stated that he'd be coming home for a week to train with NG for his fire side, something he hadn't used in nearly 20 years. Because someone close to him explained that it was Shouto's quirk, not NG's. Likely, he came to the realization because of Izuku. Any spawn of All Might, biological or not, would be self-righteous enough to tell Shouto he was his own person. Due to this, NG immediately held a dislike for Izuku. All it took was a statement from a random boy that his son liked to get him to come into his full power. And that boy just so happened to be the stepson of the man he hated more than any villain. All Might. Apparently, he stays out of the public light, just like All Might and his new wife do, so no one knows a lot about him. But there's a rumor going around that he was born quirkless, and just recently got one a few years ago. A bit strange, isn't it? It's like a 1 in a million chance to get a quirk after the cutoff at 5. If you want, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏, one of us can look more into it. Or one of the stealthier sidekicks. Vernon offered, picking up on her boss' growing annoyance. NG's frown deepened. I think we should return to the strategy. Volt, what do you have? Tomorrow the deal will go down at midnight. Both parties that we've been searching for will be present. Heroes Weekly said that he was seen in a hero training class. He could be the next All Might if that's true. NG resisted the urge to flip the desk and tackle his loudmouth sidekick to the ground. He raised Shouto, trained him, so he could become the next #1 hero after NG retired in the next few years. Now they were saying that this nobody could bring down everything he worked so hard for. If he's bringing him home, it must be serious. NG pinched the bridge of his nose. I need to make a call. Continue on without me. Izuku and Shouto told Izuku that he already had the tickets printed out. They'd be leaving on Monday, giving Izuku the weekend to prepare. That preparation would likely include seeing his mom to probably go shopping for new clothes that would impress Shouto's family. Shouto's phone vibrated, and when he pulled it out of his pocket he frowned. It's my father. Do you mind if I take this? Go ahead. Izuku took the first bite out of the second taiyaki he ordered for Shouto. Save some for me, Shouto requested, stepping into an empty corner before answering. Father, is something wrong? Does something have to be wrong for me to call? The majority of the time, yes. Fair. Are you bringing Izuku Midoriya to the wedding? We were just talking about that. How did you know? Shouto's eyes trailed around the restaurant, and he spotted a Japanese woman hurrying out of the cafe. Ah, a fan spread the word. We're looking forward to having you home. And your room is all ready. For you. Izuku and I will be staying together, father. I see. Well, per Mayumi's insistence, I'm having the house redone to modernize it. It's not ready for guests. If Izuku comes, I think he'll be more comfortable in a hotel. Shouto held back to the urge to cuss out his father. Despite the world's assumptions that he was one of the most gentlemanly heroes, he did have a mouth on him. Turning back to the counter, Shouto's mood immediately improved when he saw Izuku stuffing his face with the taiyaki. Payback. Nice try, father. I'll be renting a hotel room. We'll argue less if we aren't in the same house, anyway. Ending the call before his father could argue further, Shouto returned to his seat next to Izuku and pointed out the small piece of dessert that remained. I saved you a piece, Izuku smiled cheekily. You did you? A very small piece at that. Shouto still ate the piece and smiled. Thank you very much. How's your dad? Is everything okay? Izuku's eyes shone with concern, and Shouto almost blurted out how much he loved him. Izuku was aware of his messed up family life. Of his mother, his jerk father, and of his oldest brother disappearing. He accepted it all, and was more than willing to support Shouto through it. Yep, just called to check in about the trip. Shouto dismissed Izuku's concern. I'm glad you agreed to go. Izuku leaned in and kissed Shouto quickly. I am too. The cousins chapter text Izuku. What about this shirt? Izuku picked out a black and white pinstripe shirt. No. Inko pulled the hanger from his hands as if it offended her, replacing it with another. Black and white is for funerals. Try this. Red symbolizes passion and fertility. Izuku scoffed. There are a lot of things wrong with that reasoning. But it'll make me look like Christmas. I get away with wearing those sneakers because they're so far away from my hair. Inko hummed and continued to peruse. There are quirks out there, and I'm sure something like that will be important to a hero family. And you're the one who asked us to go shopping with you. I'm just giving my best advice. Only because I don't know what I'm doing. Shouto's family is full of famous heroes, and I haven't heard anything that isn't already public information about them. Mayumi and Natsuo don't count because they aren't heroes in the first place. Maybe he's embarrassed. He's told you a lot about his past. Perhaps the rest of the family has secrets like that, Inko offered, stopping at a jewelry station. You've always wanted to go to Asia. Who knows, if all goes well in Tokyo, then maybe you'll come back with a souvenir. Inko held up a ring, smiling impishly. Izuku laughed nervously. Mom, we haven't even talked about that. I know. But it's a big step. And it'd be so amazing if my baby got married. You've been so stressed with the hero courses and teaching. And I'd be able to have some more peace with you going into hero work if you married Shouto, especially because it's a well-off family. You'd be happy. I'm happy with Shouto no matter what. But just because their family is well-off doesn't mean we'll get along. I mean, it's not like they won't like me, right? His mother, in response, pulled a face. Mom, what was that look? Mom? People are different there, Toshinori offered, stepping out of an aisle holding a peach blazer with flowers embroidered on the cuffs. It was cute, and Izuku held onto it. How are they different? They're Japanese, I'm Japanese. They're heroes, I'm almost a hero. I even have All Might as my stepdad. Muttering under his breath, Izuku's parents watched in interest. Shouto's dad may be a jerk, but that could also be put on you, All Might. Toshinori. It was an instinct to correct Izuku's mistake at this point. I have a quirk, and I'm well on my way to passing the licensing exams. Even if I wasn't, I'm working as an econ professor. The worst thing about me is that I mutter like I am right now. Laughing gently, Inko stepped up to her son, speaking in Japanese. You may look Japanese, and you may have a hero's quirk, but here, she motioned to his head and heart. And here, she switched back to English. You're different. Sadly, Izuku knew it was true. He didn't live lavishly. He denied using Toshi's money when he could earn and use his own. He wasn't a hero yet. And he was Japanese American. Still, he held on to hope. Shouto's family was full of rich heroes. But they weren't by a private island rich, right? He'd be able to get along with them just fine, right? Shouto and Izuku stepped out of their taxi, the airport bustling around them. As far as Izuku knew, Shouto bought coach tickets. They could deal with a fan or two if Shouto was recognized. And they were saving money for a new apartment, which meant being frugal. Here's the game plan. Check our bags, get through security, and then we can eat one of the meals my mom made us for the ride. I think some katsudon is in here. If that's the case, then I call dibs. A flight attendant approached the two, along with a few other workers who pulled their luggage out of the trunk of the cab. Good afternoon, Mr. Todoroki, Mr. Midoriya. We'll take your bags and get you checked into first class. Slightly laughing, Izuku looked to Shouto for an explanation. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. We bought economy tickets. Right, Shouto. This way, please. The flight attendant disregarded his confusion and walked towards the entrance. Shouto placed a hand on the small of Izuku's back. Trust me and just go with it. Come on. Oh, okay. The flight attendant led the pair past security and to the entrance of the plane with no holdups. She stepped through the coach section and pushed aside a golden curtain to reveal the first-class cabin where another attendant greeted them. Welcome aboard, Mr. Todoroki, Mr. Midoriya. Here's the way to your private suite. And some champagne. Grabbing the champagne offered to him at the bar, Izuku gaped at the suite the attendant stopped in front of. Shouto stepped inside casually and sat in one of the leather chairs. Thank you, they said in unison. You're welcome. After takeoff, would you like to enjoy the lounge chairs, or should we convert your suite into a bedroom? Izuku thrust the bag containing their Tupperware meals into Shouto's arms, smiling awkwardly. We're fine. Thank you. Enjoy. When the attendant left, Izuku picked up one of the complimentary pairs of pajamas. Shouto, we can't afford this. These pajamas are fancier than any of my real clothes. My family does business with the airline. The seats are free of charge, don't worry. Setting the pajamas down, Izuku picked up a bottle of perfume, cologne, oil. But what really caught his attention was what Shouto said. Izuku was aware of the money heroes could make. But even their families had to run their agencies and most had to pay for the damages caused during fights. So money equaled wealth, not fortune. What kind of business? Technology, investment, other things. Nothing interesting, Shouto stated vaguely. Shouto, how rich is your family? Shouto visibly hesitated. We're comfortable. That is exactly what a super rich person would say. Izuku sat in the second leather chair. It's not a big deal, obviously. I know how much heroes make. But I always thought the costs of damages and agencies even things out a bit. What am I missing? U.S. support company. You mean the biggest support company in the world? The one owned by oh my god, I'm so stupid. Izuku had been aware that different branches of famous heroes came together to form the Todoroki family tree. But Izuku was stupid enough to not realize that Shouto, formerly recovery girl who owned UA and was a founding member of UA High, would be passing on her wealth to her children and grandchildren. A basic overview of the family tree. Shouto was the matriarch. Chiyo's younger brother, Hiroki, had a daughter who got married and gave birth to Hitoshi Shinsu, pro-hero Whisper and Shouto's second cousin. Chiyo herself had 3 children, Rei, Shota, and Kayama, the later 2 being pro-heroes Eraserhead and Midnight. Shota married Hisashi Yamada and adopted Ochako Yamada. Kayama got married twice and had 1 kid with each husband Minoru Mainta and Hanta Siro. When Enji Todoroki married Rei nearly 40 years before, they connected the dynasty of families known to the world today. And Chiyo became the Sobo of the family, the matriarch that controlled everything. UA Support Company was the largest support item company in the world, and UA High was hailed as the best hero school in the world. Both combined undoubtedly created unimaginable generational wealth, and all of Izuku's hero knowledge hadn't helped him put the dots together. Right, but I've always thought of it as their money, not mine. I try not to use it. I understand that more than anything. Have you forgotten the "it's your power" fiasco? The two chuckled. But I'm going all the way over there to meet them, and I want to know what I'll be up against. more than what their pro-wiki pages say. Well, my family is somewhat similar to other families. There's the half of them you love and respect, and there's the other half. What half will I be meeting? Well, there's my cousin Minoru, based in Taiwan. Works in movies more than actual hero work. Minoru Minta watched as a movie scene played out in front of him. A pink woman with fluffy hair screamed dramatically in a pair of binds. And cut. He's dating Mina Ashido, pro-hero Pinky. She's gotten into the film industry lately. Mina, Minoru approached his girlfriend. She bent down to meet his short stature. This script is stupid, Minoru. You know I can get out of those binds with my quirk. It's not about your quirk, babe. You have a different one in this film. Now come here and let me get a feel of those melons. We don't think they'll last much longer. Okay, what about your cousin Hanta? You don't talk about him much. Well, Hanta is a big-time pro in Hong Kong. A real family man. Hanta, Kyoka, and 3 boys posed for a camera, still as statues as the camera flashed in front of them. You know, if you move, it will look more natural, the photographer suggested. This way we look the best, Hanta dismissed insistently. Then we're done. Hanta hurried after the photographer as he walked away all smiles. Russell, thank you so much. It's an honor to be photographed by you. My pleasure. People will love it in the next Hong Kong Vogue. Thank you, Russell. And by a family man, I mean him and his wife Kyoka are picture perfect, unless you can see behind closed doors. Word is they've started couples therapy. The moment Russell and his assistant were gone, Hanta turned to Kyoka, annoyed. Hong Kong Vogue? I knew it. Your dress is a disaster. If you wore a bodega gown like I told you to, we'd be in the American Vogue. You can wear that gown to hell, Hanta. Kyoka's earphone jacks shot out and shocked Hanta as she walked away. Hitoshi is my great-uncle Hiroki's grandson, my second cousin, but we were always close as kids. Whenever he visited, him, Ochako, and I were thick as thieves. Hitoshi crouched in the darkest corner of a warehouse, watching, waiting. He normally didn't work in daylight hours, but his schedule had to be moved around for the wedding. Report in, whisper. No movement, yet. What about you, Eraser? Nothing. Then a door opened. Hitoshi melded into the shadows even more. I've got movement. Moving in. His quirk is amazing, but he's almost as elusive as Eraserhead because they're underground heroes. Where's the stuff? What stuff? Hitoshi jumped out of his hiding place, capture weapon at the ready, and one of the 3 potential trigger dealers under his control. Eraserhead would join him soon. They'd finish this and go to the new cat cafe afterwards. Then there's Ochako. I remember Ochako. Izuku had met her once when she visited Shouto in New York. She was bubbly, had a great fashion sense, and didn't mind answering all the questions Izuku had for her. She was amazing. Ochako is awesome. And she's probably the only cousin who I'm actually close with. And she's really grounded and down to earth once you get to know her. Ochako entered a high-end boutique where wealthy customers were already looking over expensive jewelry. Not only did she graduate top of her class at Oxford, start multiple charities, and is a fashion icon, Ochako has the biggest heart of any of my cousins. She's the closest to a true hero. Ochako spotted a little girl holding a stuffed bunny with a ribbon bow as she tugged her mother's sleeve. Mummy, see what I made for Bunny? No, not now, not now. Ochako frowned and knelt down in front of the little girl. Hi, I'm Ochako. What's your name? Vita. And who's this? Ochako pointed at the bunny. Bun Bun. Well, I think Bun Bun looks very dashing with his bow. You have a good eye. Thank you. Miss Monoma, right this way. It's very nice to meet you both. Ochako stood and followed the jeweler into the back room, reserved for their elite clientele. As soon as Ochako sat down, an assistant brought her tea. Boxes of one-of-a-kind jewelry were set out in front of her. These are all brand new from Antwerp. You're the first person I've shown them to. Ochako's eyes wandered until they landed on another display case. There was a pair of pearl drop earrings that drew her eye more than any of the new pieces. What are those? The jeweler waved his hand, and the assistant pulled the earrings out so Ochako could get a closer look. Those are very special. Burmese pearl drop earrings. set with emeralds and rare pigeon blood red rubies. They were worn by Queen 𝗬𝗍𝗄 at her self-anointed coronation in 1878. Ochako picked one out of the case, unfazed by the weight of them in her hand. How much? Having you wear one of my pieces is better publicity than I can buy. I'll let them go at cost. 1.2 million. Ochako smiled in response. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 later that night, Izuku and Shouto were lying in their converted suite. After Shouto's first explanation about his strange family and their dynamics, they moved on and watched a movie. After the movies came dinner, and Izuku got a head start on his summer work for his hero courses. So, if you have all this family there, why are we staying in a hotel? Aren't good Japanese sons supposed to stay with their parents? Well, because A, I'm not that good a son, and B, I just want you to myself, just for a bit. That okay? Izuku giggled girlishly as Shouto rolled on top of him. Okay? Happy to be home chapter text Izuku, and Shouto the plane banked to the left, breaking out of the clouds as Izuku caught sight of the island for the first time. They had departed from New York 18 hours before, and after one refueling stop in Frankfurt, he was in Asia. But the view from his plane window did not reveal a romantic terrain swathed in mist and mystery. It was a metropolis of skyscrapers glittering the evening sky, and from 6,000 feet Izuku could feel the power surging up from the hero capital of the world. As the electronic doors of the customs area slid open to reveal the tropical oasis that was Terminal 3, Izuku gasped. It was amazing, full of unique people with unique quirks. But it wasn't just the people that intrigued him. Far from any airport in America, this was more like a mall. What is going on? Izuku followed Shouto robotically to baggage claim, where they easily located their labeled luggage. The workers had set it aside for them. Set it aside. This is the best airport in Tokyo, Shouto explained simply. With their bags, they were escorted through security by the staff and left to their own devices. Shouto pointed out the different levels and explained some of the more confusing things Izuku asked about. When they stepped down, Izuku was practically glowing. I can't believe this place has 2 levels dedicated to a marketplace. JFK is just salmonella and despair. But I saw some All Might stuff back there. We should go back, Shouto chuckled. Izuku, All Might is your stepfather. I know, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate his merch. Shouto over here. Shouto stumbled when a woman slammed into him, throttling him as she hugged him tightly. Colorful balloons bumped together in her hands. Momo, I missed you, Shouto grunted, sighing in relief when she let him go. I missed you too, Shouto. It's been unbearable dealing with everyone without you. Momo turned to Izuku. Izuku, lovely to meet you. And nice to meet you too. Izuku bit back a squeal when Momo hugged him. Creati. The creation hero. Creati was hugging him and said it was nice to meet him. It only got better when Tenya approached, a small sign in his hands saying best man in formal print. He hugged Shouto shortly. Shouto, I appreciate you being able to come to our wedding. Of course, Tenya. You didn't have to pick us up. Of course we did, Momo beamed. We had to. Tenya swung the sign down in a robotic swiping motion. I must greet my best man properly. Midoriya, it is nice to meet you. Swallowing thickly, Izuku took in a deep breath through his nose. He'd be dealing with pro heroes all summer. He couldn't freak out every time. Not only that, but he'd be working alongside them soon enough. Well, he'd work with the heroes in New York, but that wasn't the point. Nice to meet you too, Ida. You can call Izuku if you want. Then you may call me Tenya. Izuku could die happy. Since he had pushed down his mental freak out, he had the chance to observe the couple in front of him. People always looked so different from their pictures. Tenya was taller than Izuku imagined, with narrower shoulders than his armor feigned, though they were still broader than all of Izuku. Momo was beautiful, even without a stitch of makeup. Her long black hair was down and billowing over her shoulders. She wore what appeared to be sweatpants and a plain, red t-shirt. They were an interesting pair-up, and Izuku wondered what their children would look like, more importantly, what their quirks would be. Shall we? Let me help you with your luggage. Tenya took Shouto's luggage for him. These are for you. Momo gave the balloons to Izuku. Thank you. Izuku handed off one of his bags to Shouto since his hands were free. Momo giggled nervously. I know they're a bit over the top. Perhaps we should get some food, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 suggested as they walked out of the airport. Food sounds amazing, actually, Izuku admitted, almost sheepishly. Shouto lifted Izuku's bag into the trunk of a blue jeep, taking the other from his hand and doing the same alongside 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Shouto sat up front while Momo and Izuku took the back. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁𝗀 is easy, and a good representation of street food, Shouto suggested as 𝗧𝗵𝗃 pulled out of the crowded airport parking lot. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁𝗀 it is, then. Sending Momo a confused look, she leaned over and spoke over the wind to explain. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁𝗀 is one of Tokyo's biggest open marketplaces. They're famous for all of their stores and street food. Izuku's fingers twitched, and he ached for a pen and a notebook. Instead, he tapped rhythms onto his leg. Not only was it a coping mechanism for his compulsion to write, but it helped with his anxiety more often than not as well. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 took off while still abiding traffic laws. He made sure of that as soon as they were out of the airport traffic. With the top off and music from the radio blaring, so it could be heard over the wind, Izuku's hair ran wild. He didn't bother trying to tame it. It was always messy anyway. He mentally scolded himself for not getting a haircut before they left New York. Shouto got one, and he looked irresistible. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 parked in a public parking lot. The group of four stepped out of the vehicle and walked to a large street full of stores. Most of the merchandise shops were closed, but the shops that sold food were open and bustling. Many of these places only sell a dish or two, Shouto explained as they split off from 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and Momo to grab a few dishes. That's because they've been perfecting it for generations, Hitani-san. Shouto-san, glad to see you back. An elderly gentleman hugged Shouto over his counter. Here, on the house. Thank you. Shouto took the long plate of takoyaki, passing it to Izuku as they moved on to the next stall. One oden, please. The worker handed out the bowl. Shouto searched briefly before spotting 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and Momo at a table across the street in a seating area. The pair hurried over, dropped off their dishes, and dove into the masses again. It was a miracle no one had recognized Shouto yet. Perhaps it was the haircut. Time and time again they ordered food until they had enough to feed a small army. But Momo ate to power her quirk, and the other three needed to keep up muscle mass, so the size intimidated none of them. Everyone, enjoy your meal, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 toasted, giving the cue that it was time to dig in. Izuku wasn't sure where to start. Half of the dishes were things his mom and Toshinori had made when he went over for dinner. But the other half were gateways into a world he'd only had one foot in for half of his life. Contemplating shortly, he decided on a bowl of noodles covered in an interesting-smelling sauce and scattered with meat and herbs. Shouto, on the other hand, finally felt like he was home. American food was interesting. Unhealthy and delicious rolled into one. But it lacked the Japanese aura that he missed. While slurping up a round of soba, he relished in the taste. He missed home, his friends, family, not all of them, just a select few, and the food. With Izuku by his side, he couldn't be more content. Shouto, before I forget, I'd like to ask for your help. There are some tasks I need to finish, and while I don't doubt Ijiro's abilities, it'd be nice to have another helping hand. I still have a hard time believing you chose Ijiro Kirishima to be one of your groomsmen. Thank you, I rest my case, Momo announced in between bites. It would be disrespectful not to invite him to be a groomsman, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 reprimanded, turning to Izuku to explain. Kirishima Ijiro is, as you know, the pro-hero Red Riot. He is highly energetic and quite a bit to handle. But he's a good hero, and a friend. We've worked together on many missions. That's true, Shouto shrugged. His family was pretty wealthy to begin with, and he's an only child. So his inheritance combined with his hero pay adds up to a lot. Which is why he offered to plan out 𝗧𝗵𝗃's bachelor party. He said it was the manly thing to do. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 raised a glass, a toast to my best man, Shouto Todoroki, who is well on his way to becoming a top hero, and who will always have your back. Everyone drank to that, and Momo continued, a toast to married life. Everyone drank again, chuckling as Momo feigned panic. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 nodded, this time next week. Shouto and 𝗧𝗵𝗃 carried on with their conversation. Momo leaned over to Izuku. Listen, Izuku, I know this is the first time we're meeting, but it's my bachelorette party this weekend, and I'd love it if you could come. Some guys I went to school with will be there as well, so it won't be strange. I promise. I'd love to go, Momo. Thank you for asking. How many pro heroes would be at that party? Scratch that. How many pro heroes would be at the wedding? Izuku would be panicking the entire time. What was Shouto thinking inviting him on that trip? Izuku would have had another year to prepare himself to be in a world of heroes before that point. It was all too much too fast. Also, I can't remember the last time I've seen Shouto this happy. Shouto's version of happy wasn't the average version of happy. But 2 years with him allowed Izuku to see past the barriers he had up. It must have been the same with Tenya and Momo. Tenya and him were joking around about what they thought his bachelor party would be, and Shouto was smiling. No half smile, no upturn of the lips, but smiling. Smiles weren't necessarily rare when Shouto was with Izuku, but that didn't make him any less happy to see them. His boyfriend had been through so much in his life. Seeing him so relaxed made Izuku think that everything would be okay. He's just happy to be home, Izuku murmured dismissively. He's happy to be home with you, Momo corrected with a smile. He held off telling a lot of the inner circle about you, but he was more than willing to brag to Tenya about how amazing you are. You helped him embrace his fire side. He hadn't used it in nearly 20 years before you. Having heard that statement before, Izuku wasn't shocked by the gravity of his simple, "It's your quirk" outburst to Shouto during sparring one day, but hearing about Shouto's bragging was another thing, and it made Izuku flush. Plain old Izuku Midoriya, who wasn't special up until Toshinori, was brag-worthy. Izuku loved Shouto a little more. Ochako $3 million after her first stop at the jewelry store. Ochako made her way home. Nito had been working later nights lately, so she was cautious, but confident about her ability to hide her purchases. Is he home? Not yet, ma'am. Also, your son woke up. He wants to see you. Nodding, Ochako said, "All right? You know what to do." Quickly. The staff jumped into action as Ochako released her bags from zero gravity. They were taking items out and putting them in their normal hiding places at a speed that could rival Ida's quirk. Ochako would take the time to put the items away the next morning after Nito left for work. Stepping into the bathroom, Ochako took off her new earrings and put them in their original case. They received a special spot on top of the mirror. Going to her closet, Ochako wandered through all the high-class clothes hung up around her. At the back, there was a section dedicated to comfort. She couldn't be on for the public all the time. Uravity needed a break every once in a while. But all of those comfortable clothes brought her back to her roots in a strange way. Ochako was adopted into the Yamadashi Zenji family when she was a toddler. Her parents were dirt poor and had a construction company that was quickly losing funds. They couldn't even feed Ochako, and consequently put her up for adoption in hopes that she'd find a better life. Neither of her birth parents could have guessed that she'd be adopted by pro heroes Eraserhead and Present Mike. Ochako always figured she was adopted. She didn't have either of her parents' quirks or any physical similarities that would suggest they'd used a quirk to create her. When Ochako was grown and a pro hero, she used her newfound reach to search for her birth parents and found them easily. Their business had grown as the economy did, and they were better off than before. Ochako reached out to them and kept in contact, on occasion helping them out with finances because that's what heroes do. Still, she was a Shuzenji Yamada through and through, and grew into the lifestyle she led. After changing into something more comfortable, Uraraka stepped into her son's bedroom. Tamashiro Shiro was dozing but perked up when she entered. Ochako smiled and picked up the book already set out on the nightstand. He had his father's blonde hair, but Ochako's brown eyes. His quirk was from Ochako's husband's side. Apparently, his mother had something similar and passed it on to Shiro. They called them binging balls. Shiro could create small black orbs with mouths. Those balls could eat through anything, giving him potential for rescue work in the future. The Little Prince was Shiro's favorite. They'd already read through it in Japanese and English, so they had moved on to French. She read until Shiro was nearly asleep, and finished the paragraph she was on when his eyes slipped closed. Cette visite fut très courte, mais elle plongea le petit prince dans une grande mélancolie. Pausing when she heard a noise, Ochako marked her place and carefully shifted out of her son's bed. Giving Shiro one last glance, she closed his door and walked to her room. Nito was already in the shower, so she settled in bed and checked her messages while she waited. "Sorry, There was a trigger bust that took longer than we thought. Her husband hurried to the closet in a towel. It's okay, I get it. But don't forget, wedding festivities start on Wednesday, so no emergencies during festivities. Nito emerged from the closet in pajama pants, bitter at the mention of the upcoming family celebrations. I know. Wouldn't dream of missing a second with your family and their other pro-hero friends. Nito had been a sidekick until earlier that year, and he was currently trying to start his own hero agency. It was stressful, and Ochako knew that Nito always struggled with being lesser than the other pro-heroes in her family, forming some resentment towards them as a result. Come on, it won't be all bad. Shouto and his boyfriend will be there. You'll like him. Ochako attempted to lift his spirits. Oh, yeah? Why? 'Cause he's not a real hero like me. You are a real hero, Nito. And you know that's not what I meant. Ochako shifted to the side when he sat next to her, kissing his cheek. You know, I thought I caught the maids trying to shove a pair of Jimmy Choos behind the dryer. I don't know why you bother trying to hide your shopping from me. You can buy whatever you want. I get it. Besides, everybody knows you wear the money pants in this family since you're higher in the rankings. Pants are overrated, Ochako smiled, remembering the present she'd hidden under her pillow. I got you something, too. To celebrate the launch of your agency. I know you already have a lot of watches, but I thought you could find a place for it somewhere. You aren't a sidekick anymore. You've got your own agency. Ochako held out the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 gouverneur she had picked up that day. It was around 8,197,374 yen, about 75,000 American dollars. But overall, it was equivalent to a busy couple of weeks at work. I love it. Thank you. Nito leaned in for a kiss. Ochako smiled. It was times like those she could forget his resentment towards her family and her worries about his agency. They were in love like any other married couple. The Bakugo household. Chapter text. Izuku groaned when the alarm clock started playing the radio. He peered at the time. They'd only slept for around 6 hours due to their late night and jet lag. But Izuku knew his excitement would keep him going. The room and bed were so nice, he wished he could live there instead of his overpriced New York apartment. He couldn't imagine how much it was costing Shouto each night. It was an elegant suite decorated in understated pale wood, the only burst of color coming from the fuchsia orchids on the console table against the mirrored wall. Outside, across from their balcony, was a perfectly manicured garden with a large, inviting swimming pool lined with deck chairs. The garden was set within a quadrangle of poolside rooms, and just beyond the serenity of the low-rise Victorian structure rose a cluster of high-rise buildings. It gave the illusion that they were somewhere remote, not in one of the most populated cities in the world. Good morning. Shouto was already half-dressed, having always been a morning person. I've got to meet Tenya early for my groomsman duties. Groaning at the reminder, Izuku rolled over to face his boyfriend. With his shirt only half-buttoned, it allowed Izuku to catch a glance at the abs he enjoyed so much. While Izuku sported a pair of his own, Shouto was leaner, the muscles on his arms and torso more defined and corded. No matter what he did, Izuku doubted he would ever lose his last amounts of baby fat, forever giving rounder cheeks and less intense muscular structure. I have to meet Katsuki today. He said he had the day off from hero work, and that he'd be at his parents'. A college reunion, Shouto smiled, shrugging on a thin jacket. But don't forget, dinner at Sobo's tonight. Yup. My entire family will be there. Yep. I can't wait for you to meet everyone. The inner circles of the hero world aren't what you'd think. Was that a positive or a negative? Izuku had heard both amazing and awful things from the heroes in his life, Toshinori and Shouto. Whilst all heroes were public figures, there were a lot of things kept behind closed doors. Whether it was because of their desire for privacy, or it would ruin their reputation depended on the situation. Rolling out of bed, Izuku headed to his suitcase. Maybe not, but your dad is still an asshole. That's true, but he's also better than before. He's been trying to reconcile with everyone. Either way, Endeavor is a good hero, and you have to meet him no matter what. Izuku sighed, wondering what to wear to both the Bakugos and to the party later that night. Got it. I'll see you later tonight. Shouto gave Izuku a peck on the lips. Love you. One more. Izuku pulled Shouto in for another kiss. Okay. I love you. See you tonight. Shouto left, leaving Izuku to get ready on his own. That night, he'd be meeting 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗧𝗍 recovery girl 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗧𝗍, the woman who controlled the largest inner circle of heroes in the hero capital of the world. Yeah, Izuku was a little nervous. If I can handle Kaken, I can handle anything. A few hours later, Izuku stepped out of his taxi and faced the large Bakugo family mansion. Both Mitsuki and Masaru Bakugo were popular figures in the fashion world, leading to the mansion they currently owned. Faintly, he wondered if everyone he knew was rich. The gates swung open, and Katsuki stormed out of the house. Deku. It sounded like a threat, but Izuku knew it was a term of endearment. It was Izuku's hero name, after all, come from a drunken night of sharing their deepest insecurities in college, but no one had to know that. Izuku revealed his past bullying experiences, and Katsuki explained Deku and Deku to him, and the line he could blur between them. Kachen. The pair met in the middle of the driveway. You look great. Of course I do. Who do you think I am? Katsuki. Why the hell did you leave the front door? Oh, Izuku. Mitsuki's yelling turned into a kind greeting when she saw the green-haired man. It's so hot. Come in and enjoy the aircon. Everyone is excited to meet you. Katsuki and Izuku followed Mitsuki into the home. It was large and grand, with gold detailing all around. Upon first look, it was nearly blinding, and Izuku blinked several times to get used to it. Your house is amazing, Bakugo-san. Call me Mitsuki. Mitsuki dismissed the formality. The classic color of royalty inspired us. And All Might's hair, Bakugo whispered lowly. Really? Yeah. Lunch is ready. The rest of the family is in the dining room waiting. The Bakugo family was an interesting bunch. Along with the parents and Katsuki was Eri and Kota. Eri split custody with Katsuki, Lemillion, and Eraserhead. The three heroes rescued her from a gang a year back and worked out a convoluted deal with a hero commission to watch over her, since her quirk was too dangerous to do normal fostering. Kota simply stayed with the Bakugos often, since his parents died against Muscular and his aunt was constantly busy with hero work. She was close to Mitsuki since Mitsuki designed the Pussycats costumes. Izuku sat down next to Katsuki and across from Kota. Masaru moved around the table and greeted Izuku with an interesting statement. We'd like to thank you, Midoriya. Katsuki would be even worse if it weren't for you. He was a hot mess at college before you became roommates. Quiet, old man. Don't talk to your father that way. Oh, no. If it weren't for Kachen keeping me on track, I wouldn't have passed my exams. I was too distracted by heroes to study half the time. Mitsuki rushed over when her husband sat down, shoving a large plate of dumplings in Izuku's face. Don't be shy. This is simple food. Oh, thank you. You're not a model. No, I'm not. Izuku chuckled nervously. Now he knew where Katsuki got his personality from. Make sure you eat it all. I'm watching you. Mom, you're creeping him out, Katsuki grumbled into his food. Oop, sorry. You may not be a model, but I've heard that you're doing hero courses. So, keep that muscle mass up. Oni-chan, can I go on the trampoline? Eri asked quietly, the question directed towards Katsuki. You haven't finished your chicken nuggets yet, honey, Masaru pointed out the half-full plate. Mitsuki cut in and intensified the situation. There are a lot of children starving in America, right? Look at Izuku. See how small he is? You want to look like that? No. Then eat your nuggets, awkwardly. Izuku lowered his head and shoved a dumpling in his mouth. He just finished thinking this morning that he still had baby fat, and their Mitsuki was saying he was too skinny. So, Izuku, what do you do in America? I'm an economics professor, but like Mitsuki said, I'm taking hero courses. I'll take my licensing test next year. Very impressive. It's no wonder since All Might is your stepfather. Mitsuki nodded in approval. Let me get this straight. You both went to the same college, but one of you graduated with a useful degree and are pursuing another one. And Katsuki came back as an angry hedgehog who can't handle a villain without destroying a block. Katsuki growled into his food, but did a good job at not murdering his mother. Izuku was impressed. One thing they'd worked on together while going to school was handling Katsuki's anger. They did a good job, it seemed. Masaru leaned to Kota. See, Kota? Heroes aren't all about the fame and money. He's doing it because he really cares. Silently, Koda lifted his phone and snapped a picture of Izuku. Not knowing what just happened, Izuku shifted in his seat and blinked owlishly. Why did Koda take a picture of him? What brings you here? Mitsuki questioned. I'm here with my boyfriend for a wedding. He's the best man. What's his name? Maybe we know them. Shouto Todoroki. All movement at the table stopped. Even Katsuki spit out his latest bite before he could swallow. Brows furrowing in confusion, Izuku looked to Katsuki to see if he would explain why everyone just froze up. The Shouto you're dating is the damn icy hot, Katsuki growled out, practically blowing smoke out of his nose. Yeah. I thought you knew that. No, Deku. I didn't automatically assume that the Shouto you were dating was one of my greatest competitors for #1 hero. Stupid Deku. Best friend's wedding. You're going to Tenya Ida's wedding? Mitsuki screamed. Yeah, I mean, it's just a normal celebrity wedding, right? Heroes get married all the time. Izuku grimaced when Koda took another picture of him, laughing to himself like Izuku was stupid. The Tenyas, the Yayarazes, Todorokis, Shuzunjis, they're the biggest families in Japan and the world even. UA Support Company is the biggest support item company in the world. Not to mention all the offshoots in real estate, development, investment, quirk-based fashion, Masaru explained excitedly. He gets it, Katsuki cut in. Deku, don't you understand how important hero families are to society? They're like royalty. What are they like? I don't really know what they're like. I haven't met them yet. I'm gonna meet them tonight. I'm going to Shouto Sobo's house. You're going to Recovery Girl's house wearing this. Wearing that. I thought red was a lucky color. Izuku picked the red shirt his mother liked so much, even if he still thought he looked like Christmas. He trusted his mom's opinion and wanted to make a good first impression on the family. If you wanted to look like a Christmas tree, maybe. Katsuki stood and grabbed Izuku's wrist so he could pull him along. I still have some clothes stored here that can fit you. Come on, we need to fix this disaster. Katsuki pulled Izuku upstairs and shoved him into an old bedroom. Katsuki bypassed the room itself and went straight for the massive walk-in closet. Distractedly, Katsuki rummaged through the aisles of clothes inside color-coded and wrapped in plastic. By some clothes, Katsuki meant an entire closet full. With his short amount of free time while Katsuki searched, Izuku thought over everything he had learned about the hero's social world. Things he'd never focused on since all that mattered to him was their fighting styles and quirks. Heroes made more money than he thought. Perhaps not every hero since it depended on their ranking, but the hero families Izuku was concerned with did. The Todoroki Shuzunji family not only had their hero wages to go on, but the UA Support Company as well. Chiyo spread her wealth over her children and grandchildren, which is why everyone there was so rich. Heroes weren't only looked at as heroes by the public, but if they were popular enough, they were seen as more than human. Izuku should have guessed, based on how the world viewed All Might. In other words, Izuku had gotten himself into way more than he thought by falling in love with Shouto. These people are crazy rich, and because of that most heroes are so posh and sobby, they're snotty, Katsuki concluded Izuku's thoughts. You were muttering, damn nerd. But you're right, and it's good you finally see what's going on. But Shouto's not like that. Katsuki fake gagged, shoving a pair of shoes into Izuku's arms. You're so disgustingly in love. Even if he isn't, I guarantee you other heroes there will be. Which is why you can't look like Christmas personified. White would be nice. And it's not the wedding so you won't get backlash. Something floral, bring out some femininity, while still having a suit with a masculine cut. Katsuki would never admit that he picked up a good fashion sense from his parents, but Izuku was glad he was putting it to good use to help him out. Finally, Katsuki shoved said white and floral print into his arms. Changing in the closet while Katsuki waited outside, Izuku admired himself in the body-length mirror across from him. Floral prints had always looked nice on him, making him seem gentle and pretty without leaning too far into femininity, and he could never go wrong wearing white. When Izuku stepped out, Katsuki was already waiting at the vanity. Izuku sat down in the chair while facing Katsuki and closed his eyes when Katsuki neared him holding something. Izuku hummed in surprise when something touched his eyelid. Chill, Deku. It's eyeliner. You'll look good with it. Katsuki stepped back when he was done and Izuku spun to face the mirror. He looked nice with eyeliner, the smudged makeup above his eyelashes causing his eyes to pop. Katsuki often used it to fill in the areas on his eyes that his mask didn't cover, so it made sense that he was so good at it. Thanks, Kaken. Don't mention it. Seriously, don't. People will think I'm nice or something. Now come on, because we ate lunch late, it's almost dinner time. You don't want to be late to meet those jerks. After exchanging goodbyes with the Bakugo family, Katsuki led Izuku out to his Audi and had him put the address into the GPS. As soon as Katsuki pressed on the gas, Izuku was holding on for dear life. Katsuki sped through the city, obviously not fearing the fiery death they'd be met with if Katsuki crashed. Izuku, on the other hand, was terrified. Come on. This isn't your grandma's road. God damn it. Katsuki swerved around a car already going 15 above the speed limit. Thanks for driving me, Izuku grit out, praying to whoever could hear that he could live long enough to become a hero. It's my one chance to see where Icy Hot grew up. I'm not gonna pass that up. I'm sure it's all fancy and shit. Technically, they weren't going where Shouto grew up because it was his grandma's house. But according to Shouto, he spent a lot of time there when he was younger, especially after what happened with his mom. Shousenji's home wasn't in the main city. It took nearly 30 minutes for them to get past all the skyscrapers. But then Katsuki took a sharp turn, and it was like they were in a completely different district. Is this still Tokyo? Private property or some shit like that? Tokyo district is split into a bunch of smaller parts, so it's no surprise there's actually some forest here. At the next intersection, make a U-turn. Make a U-turn. Deku, did you give me the right address? The GPS says there's nothing here, so either the damn thing is broken or you're a dumbass. Stopping at the end of the road in front of a broad gate, which seemed to show it was the entrance to some sort of government property, Katsuki smacked the screen in his car, as if it would change the GPS directions. I gave the right directions, Izuku assured. You copied and pasted? Yeah. Did you copy and paste middle of a weird forest and throw it in there? Because we're in a weird forest in the middle of Tokyo. No. It says this is the address. Because I feel like that's you actually used the holy shit. Katsuki's hands sparked to life when a broad-shouldered man leaned down towards the driver's side window. I'm about to light this place up. Wait, Izuku pushed Katsuki's hand down. We're here for the Shousenji family dinner. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm Shouto Todoroki's oh my god. Another guard popped up on Izuku's side. The pair exchanged words before one of them spoke into a walkie-talkie, and the other walked to the control panel on the gate and input a code. That's the retired hero fourth kind. Didn't think he'd be the type to do security. But then again, we're talking about Recovery Girl. Katsuki pointed at the man at the gate. And they have guns. What the hell is this place, Kriyak? The gates groaned as they swung open. Slowly, Katsuki pulled through, glaring at the guards as they passed by them. If you hurt my car, I'll track you down and murder you. Kaken, Izuku reprimanded quietly. The guards didn't react. Katsuki huffed and continued down the path. What the? Lanterns lined the wide driveway that seemed endless as it looped around the hilly forest. Unlike the rest of developed Tokyo, the entire area felt old, untouched. The forest finally gave way to rolling grounds, and an avenue lined with tall palms, and Izuku had to wonder how they stayed alive and healthy all year long. Then he scolded himself, knowing that there were obviously quirks in the world that could assist with that. A home that could only be described as a semi-modern Japanese palace came into view. The exterior held the traditional infrastructure of a royal home, but the lights surrounded the house, the colors, and a certain vibe it gave off made it seem modern. Brand new and ancient rolled into one. Katsuki drove to the front of the house. Staff lined the walkway leading to the front doors. Two of them pulled open the double front doors, and Shouto, in a linen suit, no tie, with perfectly styled hair, walked out. Looking every bit the prince of the manor, he was regal and powerful in a perfect package. I hate his guts, but damn, how did you manage that, Deku? Katsuki sent Izuku a smirk as he practically drooled over Shouto in his suit. Not managing an answer, Izuku smiled when Shouto opened his door for him. Stepping out, Shouto looked over Izuku's outfit with a smile. I think I've fallen in love with you all over again. Blushing and smiling sheepishly, Izuku responded, since when are you so cheesy? Shouto simply chuckled in response, leaning down to greet Izuku with a kiss. Izuku was so distracted by Shouto's attention that he didn't register Katsuki clearing his throat from behind him. Did you find the house okay? It was a bit confusing. I didn't know there was property like this in Tokyo. It's been in my Sobo's family for generations, and none of the offer's developers have given us match up to the actual worth. It's beautiful, I wouldn't want to sell it either. Deku, Katsuki hissed, finally catching Izuku's attention. Oh, right. Shouto. This is my friend, Ground Zero, Bakugo Katsuki. Number 3 hero in Japan and 15th globally. Yeah, well, as soon as Endeavor retires, I'm going to surpass that 𝗲𝗲 guy and you on the global scale. Lemillion was another hero to beat. He was incredibly skilled and good at strategy. Immediately a hit in the hero world, the first year he made his debut. It'd be interesting to see how things played out when Izuku joined the race as soon as Endeavor retired. Though there were rumors going around that Lemillion was nearing his million mark and was thinking about settling down much like All Might did. Though he wanted to get ahead of the curve before his body tore itself apart. Shouto held back his comment, reminding himself that this was one of Izuku's closest friends and he had to be polite. Pushing aside his pride, he made his face remain neutral. Would you like to stay for dinner? You know, I wouldn't want to impose, it's not a problem. I had some dinner plans. Seriously, we have a lot of, yeah, I'll fucking come to dinner. Katsuki leapt out of his car, stepping to the trunk where he had 3 bagged suits waiting. Looking through them, he picked his favorite and approached Shouto and Izuku. I didn't think you'd say yes, Izuku muttered. Like I'd missed the chance to see where the Canadian flag grew up. And you have a suit in your trunk? Why the hell not? Katsuki stopped in front of Shouto. If you hurt Deku in any way, I'll explode your dick off. Noted. With that, the trio entered the home. World caving in chapter text Izuku and Shouto. The home/palace/mansion was even grander inside than it was out. Gold was engraved into almost everything, intricate decorations were expertly placed, and immaculately dressed guests were mingling all around. All of it could have been from a magazine, and if Izuku wasn't there living it, he would have thought it was. I thought it was just a family thing, Izuku told Shouto nervously when he took count of how many people were there. Pro-heroes or civilians, all of them seemed important, and very few of them Izuku could identify in Shouto's family tree. Grandmother invited some of her friends over tonight. The tanhuas are blooming. They very rarely bloom, and only for a few hours. It's a whole thing. It was then that Izuku took count of the jazz band playing and singing, amping up the classy atmosphere even more. Bakugo, you can get changed in the good bathrooms. They're upstairs, and to the, yeah, I can figure it out. Katsuki bounded up the steps, picked up a glass ornament from the table, dropped said ornament, and replaced it as if it didn't have a large crack in it. Shouto sighed tiredly as Katsuki moved on, and Izuku winced apologetically. Classic Katsuki. So when you said you spent a lot of time at your Sobo's house, this wasn't what I was expecting. A waiter approached carrying an ornate silver bowl. Inside was water and delicate purple flowers. Not entirely sure what to do with it, Izuku picked it up and lifted it to his lips. Shouto quickly caught his hands. No. Those are for your fingers. He set the bowl back down and thanked the waiter. A strange moment for Izuku to realize how out of his element he really was. But Izuku realized he was really out of his element. He grew up washing his hands before meals, not as soon as he entered a house in a silver bowl with little flowers in the water. He grew up in a small New York apartment that always smelled just a little off, and with little flea market decorations, not, that's a stuffed tiger. That is Mr. 𝗲𝗵𝗲. My great-grandfather killed him when he ran into the house, or so the story says. He had the ice quirk that my mother received, so he pierced it through the heart. Ochako, and I used to hide cigarettes in his paws. You hid cigarettes? After what happened with my mother, I spent a lot more time with my Sobo, and that's when I started rebelling. Hence the cigarettes. Trust me, I thought it was really intense at the time. You're right, that's a very intense form of rebellion, Izuku joked, some of his nerves dissipating thanks to the ease Shouto always brought him. Should we head in? Actually, I'd like to rip off the band-aid and introduce you to my father. It's better we do it now rather than later. Right. Yeah, I can do this. Through another round of rooms, each one grander than the last, Shouto pushed open the door to the kitchen. Maids plating food, chefs chopping and frying, and a child here or there sneaking snacks. Compared to the refined atmosphere just outside, the kitchen was in utter chaos. Amidst it all was Todoroki, barking orders left and right. Only stopped his Japanese shouting when he noticed Shouto. With hawk-like eyes, he screened Shouto's appearance, then Izuku's. Shifting uncomfortably under the intense gaze, Izuku kept his shoulders back and his chin up. He would not show his nerves to the man who caused Shouto so much suffering, even if he was trying to be better. You cut your hair, Enji observed, eyes narrowing when he took in that the main thing Shouto cut was the red side. And you look tired from your trip. You must keep your strength up. I'll have the chefs send some herbal soup to your hotel later. Father, this is Izuku Midoriya. Todoroki-san, it's nice to meet you. I'm a big fan of your hero work. It was only a half-lie. Enji sucked as a person, but he was a pretty good hero in terms of power and arrest count. Enji gave Izuku another look over. You may call me Enji. I was wondering how long it would take for Shouto to introduce me to you. I've heard you're a professor. Not going to be a hero like your stepfather. It was hard to miss both the hope at the question and the distaste when Enji said stepfather. Still hated All Might, it seemed. So no matter how hard Izuku tried, or how appealing he was as a boyfriend, he was already on Enji's shit list. Well, I teach economics right now, but I'm back in school as well to become a hero. I'll get my license next year. He's Nayu's youngest faculty member, Shouto added, making Izuku smile. He could always count on Shouto to build him up. Enji suddenly left the pair to inspect a plate of hors d'oeuvres. He fixed it, barked some more orders at another chef, then returned. Economics sounds challenging. Are your birth parents academics as well? No. My dad actually died before I was born, and my mom didn't go to college. She actually hardly spoke English when she immigrated to the United States. But she worked really hard and earned her real estate license while waiting tables. Now she likes to say that she's Flushing's top real estate broker. I see. Well, not all heroes fight criminals. She must be proud of you. All Might too, since you've decided to become a hero. Well, I've wanted to be a hero since I was a kid, but my quirk only manifested a few years ago, which is why I became a teacher instead. Pursuing one's passions. Very American. Not like here, where parents are obsessed with shaping the lives of their children. Enji and Shouto exchanged heated glares at that statement. Thankfully, a musical gong sounded from outside, breaking the tension. That's dinner. Yes, Izuku, it was nice to meet you. Thanks. You too. Shouto, with a hand at the small of Izuku's back, led him out of the kitchen and back out to the main rooms being used by the partygoers. He hates me. He hates a lot of people. Eventually, he might warm up to you. If he's really trying to do better like he says he is, he'll make an effort. That's slightly comforting. Shouto, Ochako. Izuku. Ochako, in a perfect cocktail dress, headed for the couple followed by Nito. Monoma. She hugged the two of them tightly, delighted to see them. Ochako, it's good to see a face I know. This is my husband Nito. Nice to meet you, Nito. I love your quirk. Thank you. It's nice to meet you too, Izuku. Another person barreled in, smacking Shouto harshly on the back. Hey, the golden boy's back. And you must be Izuku. I'm Hantashiro, and this is my wife. Hi, her name is Kyoka. Kyoka's earphone jack shot out and shocked Hanta lightly. Oh, alright, I get it. Anyway, I see you've met Ochako and Nito. Nito is trying to start his own agency. So if you want a small, homey feel, head there. So, you're from the Taiwan plastic Midoriyas, right? Oh, well actually. While Hanta was interrogating Izuku, Nito, Kyoka, Shouto, and Ochako carried out their own conversation. Sometimes I want to see him fail miserably against a villain. Just once, Nito scowled. Good luck with that. I've been rooting for. A hilarious fail for years. Kyoka rolled her eyes. He means well, I think. I'll be in my normal corner. Champagne? Nito asked Ochako. Thank you. Champagne sounds great. I'll see you guys later. Kyoka waved and headed off as well. So, have you prepped Izuku to face the wolves? Ochako questioned, looking over to Hanta, still questioning Izuku about which rich family he came from. Izuku is a New Yorker, and he lectures college students for a living. I think he can manage our family. Shoo, you've been away too long if you think that's the case. Izuku is strong, but he's too nice for his own good. Hanta looked at Izuku like he was crazy. So you aren't a Taiwan Midoriya? Nope. Hasu Telecom Midoriyas? No. Singapore packing peanut Midoriyas? Is that really a thing? It astounded Izuku that Hanta hadn't figured out that he was All Might's stepson. Unless no one here took rumors at face value, because of what their lives consisted of. It didn't help that Izuku did everything he could to stay out of the press. Still, every once in a while Katsuki would send him a news article with a grainy photo of their small family on an outing together with some trashy title. Yeah, it's everywhere. I'm going to introduce Izuku to everyone. We'll be back. Wait, I got it. Izuku Midoriya, as an All Might stepson. Am I right? The couple kept walking, not turning back. The first people they walked up to were pro heroes Eraserhead and Present Mike. Eraserhead was much less scruffy than he seemed on the rare occasions he appeared on the news. Hair pulled back and freshly shaven. Present Mike was the same as always, cheery and bright. The only difference was that his hair wasn't in its iconic gravity-defying style. This is Uncle Shouto and Uncle Hisashi. They're some of the, better people of the family. They also teach at UA High on top of their hero work. It's amazing to meet you. I've never been to a Tanhua party before. Izuku was desperate to make a good impression on one of the pros they came across. Endeavor hated him. He didn't get a chance to talk to Earphone Jack, and Cellophane was undecided. We heroes love throwing parties, Hisashi smiled brightly, immediately relaxing Izuku. These were the same people who raised Ochako to be an absolute angel. They couldn't be that bad. So, Izuku, how many times have you broken your bones while overdoing your quirk? Shouto asked bluntly. Shouto, Hisashi scolded, smacking him lightly on the arm. I'm curious. From what Shouto told me, you struggled with your quirk at first, constantly breaking your arms and any other bones you channeled the power into. But recently, you've improved and are focusing on a shoot style. Smart, Midoriya. Swelling with pride, Izuku sent a wide-eyed look to Shouto. He smiled encouragingly. I thought he could give some good advice to both of us since we were sparring together. I trust him. Yeah, we totally aren't stuck up, Hisashi practically sang, causing his husband to smack his forehead, for the most part. Those two were a success. Next was Pro Hero Midnight. Aunt Nimiri, she's the one to go to for relationship advice. That's what being an R-rated hero is for. So you too, any advice that you're craving? Nimiri licked her lips, smirking. No thank you. Izuku's face and ears heated up. He knew what kind of questions she would be most willing to answer, and he wasn't willing to ask. Shouto quickly ushered Izuku away after that. Then came two of the most important people he had to impress. Shouto's brother and sister. This is Fayumi and Natsuo, my brother and sister. Izuku, hi. Fayumi pulled Izuku into a tight hug, filling him with warmth despite how cold her core body temperature was. It's so nice to finally meet you. Shouto has told us a lot about you, Natsuo added, smile a bit smaller but still present. It's nice to meet you too. Shouto likes to talk about you guys. Izuku gave them his best smile, and Fayumi got even more excited. They were much warmer than their father, and lived up to the stories Shouto liked to tell. Really, Shouto? That's so sweet. And you, Izuku. I think you'll make a really good hero. Not just because you're related to All Might, of course. Agreed, blood isn't everything. You've got the right stuff. After 3 amazing successes came an elderly woman dressed in traditional Japanese clothing. Izuku, having never researched Recovery Girl extensively, assumed this was Shouto Sobo. Shouto, is this your boyfriend? You should hurry up and get married already. Shouto chuckled and Izuku took this chance to make a good impression. "Sobo, thank you for inviting me into your home. It's beautiful." The woman tilted her head in confusion, and Izuku's instincts told him he just made a big mistake. Shouto placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder. "This is Ling-che, my old nanny." There it was. Izuku was horrified, but he didn't know how to fix his mistake. He resisted the urge to cry and go dig his own grave in the garden. It would be hard to recover from that, and based on the giggles around him, Shouto wasn't the only one who heard his slip-up. Ochako. Dinner plate in hand, Ochako found Nito in the corner of the library on his phone. She'd been caught up in maintaining good relationships with both her family and family friends with ties to the hero world. Because of that, she'd had to leave him alone for around an hour. "Look, now's the time we need all hands on deck. Please, just do me this favor. Thank you. Bye-bye." They started clearing away dinner. Ochako held out the plate and sat next to him. "I got your favorites." Giving his wife a quick kiss, he picked up the plate. "Thank you. You know, if you need some help at the agency, I could always come in and help out." "The famous hero 𝗧𝗵𝗲 working as a sidekick?" Ochako giggled at that. "Wait, isn't Momo's bachelorette party tomorrow? And this would be the perfect excuse to get out of it." "Thank you, but I've got everything covered." "Okay. I forgot to get you a fork." "It's okay, you stay. I'll go get it." Soon after Nito left the room, his phone buzzed. Ochako picked it up. "Nito, I think it's the agency." But he was too far away to hear. Another ping and a text popped up. "The bed feels empty without you." Gasping in horror, Ochako dropped the phone onto the coffee table in front of her. There was no way. Nito wouldn't cheat on her. Not when things were going so well. But when she thought about it, things weren't going well. Nito had been withdrawing. Ochako chalked it down to having to deal with his new agency all the time. But it wasn't just that. There had been expenses to different restaurants and jewelry stores. Restaurants they didn't go to together, and jewelry Nito never gave her. Business trips to recruit sidekicks more often than necessary. It was a textbook cheating case, one that Ochako could never see because she was blinded by her insistence that he'd stay loyal. Pushing down her rising nausea, she smiled when Nito returned as if her world wasn't caving in. "Izuku, I can't believe I did that." Izuku picked up a glass of wine from the bar as soon as the bartender set it out for him. He desperately needed a drink. "It's fine, Izuku. It was an honest mistake. I think I freaked out your old nanny." Turning too quickly and unaware of how close Shouto was, his glass slammed into Shouto's chest and spilled the drink down his shirt. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." Nothing was going Izuku's way, it seemed. He reached for a napkin as the red wine seeped into the formerly white shirt. There was no saving it. The stain set in immediately. "Go change, Shouto. I'll protect him from the wolves." "Thanks, Hitoshi. I'll be back soon." Shouto hurried off, leaving Izuku with a tired, yet most welcoming unfamiliar face he'd seen all night. Recognition sparked in his mind, but he wasn't able to place a name to the face. "Midoriya Izuku." Izuku smiled warmly, holding out his hand. "Oh, I know. Everything's been talking about you. You're the one who stole our little Shouto's heart." Izuku flushed at the notion. Was that really what people were saying about him? Katsuki, freshly changed into his cocktail outfit, black shirt and red tie with gold embroidering, strode up to Izuku before he could reply. "I heard you thought Sobo was the nanny." Izuku cringed. Katsuki shook his head in disappointment. "Idiot." Hitoshi held his hand out to Katsuki, curiosity sparking in his eye. "Shinsu Hitoshi. Bakugo Katsuki. Aren't you that new pro hero? The underground one?" "Of course. Shinsu Hitoshi, Shouto's second cousin and underground hero." Whisper. Izuku didn't think he would be here. He was technically extended family. Then again, he did think it was just going to be the aunts, uncles, and cousins at a small dinner party. You could say that. Hitoshi sensed Katsuki's disdain towards him being potential competition and quickly changed the subject. Izuku had to appreciate how smart and observant he was. "I like your tie." "Thanks, it's a clip-on." Izuku held back a snort. The son of two fashion designers, and he wore clip-on ties. "So, Hitoshi, you're one of the cousins?" Izuku asked. He already knew the answer, but it seemed like good conversation. Distantly, Sobo's younger brother is my grandfather. Neither of my parents are heroes either. Because of that, I'm considered a poorer relation. But I'm useful because of my quirk, mind control. When I'm not putting out fires, I'm acquiring things. Koi fish, one-of-a-kind furniture, a rare Cambodian gong. Mind control? That's amazing. No wonder you're such a good underground hero. Are there any conditions? Wait, did you say a Cambodian gong? Why would someone buy that? Dung. Hitoshi sighed tiredly. Because they can. Shouto opened his old closet to see a row of meticulously pressed dress shirts. Smiling, he picked out a white one, indistinguishable from the last. Chiyo insists all your clothes be washed and pressed every 2 weeks. Regarding his father in disinterest, Shouto frowned when Enji took the white shirt from his hands and replaced it with a light blue one. Though, he didn't argue. He had to pick his battles, and fighting over a shirt wasn't a worthy one. As Shouto removed his soiled shirt, he looked around his childhood bedroom and noted the few pictures and mementos he had collected over his time spent at his Sobo's house. He wasn't one for knickknacks, but that didn't stop him from accumulating something here or there. Everything is exactly as I left it, he found himself muttering. I keep telling Chiyo to put your things away, but she says this room makes her feel like you're still here. She was furious when you didn't move back last year. Can't say I reacted much better. Shouto counted his blessings that his father didn't take the conversation change as a chance to start yelling at him, and instead remained calm while speaking. Picking up the blue shirt from the bed, he slid into it. Both of us were looking forward to having you home. I'm ready to retire, Shouto. As soon as I do, I want you to surpass 𝗵𝗃 in Japan and rank in the top 10 internationally. It's what we've worked towards. And what about the company? Money achieves many things, Shouto. You can hire people to assist you or ask some of the family. Money achieves many things, Shouto echoed bitterly. Like buying Aka-san. I didn't say that to start a fight, Shouto. Shouto finished his buttons and moved on to his jacket. I know, father. But I'm not ready to return yet. There are things in New York I want to see through. Enji frowned, but didn't press further. Instead, he changed the subject. I'm glad I finally met Izuku. He's impressive, and the shine in his eyes when talking about being a hero is the same I see in yours. I thought you'd like that. The first person I brought home was Japanese, has a powerful quirk, and is training to be a hero. Japan's American. Be cautious, Shouto. He can grow to be a distraction. A relationship with a potential competitor for the top. Enji stopped when he noticed Shouto's glare. Bringing him home, introducing him at a large family gathering. Some might say, when there is something to say, you'll know. There are some things you can't control, father. When Shouto turned to face his father, Enji pounced and placed a pocket square in his breast pocket, the same color as the shirt. Nodding, he hummed in approval. Perfect, as you should be, Izuku. Everyone. The 10 Hua plants very rarely bloom, and even then only at night. Mimiri stepped out of the conservatory to give her announcement, Shota and Hisashi beside her. Their beauty is spectacular, but fleeting. By dawn they'll be gone, Hisashi said dramatically. Come along, was all Shota contributed. Instead of crowding into the conservatory like many other guests, Hitoshi was guiding Katsuki and Izuku through the yard and giving them the rundown on the social scene. There's Mina Ashido, hero named Pinky. She's dating our cousin Minoru, though she's better family than he is. Along with her side job as an actress, there was a rumor she did some erotic dancing. Her videos were okay, Katsuki shrugged. Izuku's brows furrowed. Did Katsuki just compliment someone? Eyes on the back of his head, judging, watching, waiting to strike. Izuku's instincts flared, and when he turned his head, he caught a few guests quickly turning away. Is it just me, or is everyone staring? Izuku asked quietly. They're jealous. You nabbed the crown prince. Hitoshi's monotonous voice differed dramatically from his words. Shouto is Sobo's favorite. And when Uncle Enji retires, not only will he have a high chance of becoming #1 hero when he moves back to Japan, but he'll inherit the Yua company. No surprise there, when that's the competition. Minoru was chasing after some of the female party guests, completely disregarding Mina. And Hanta was obviously betting with some sidekicks about how far he could shoot his tape. They may have been half-brothers, but their preferred methods of irresponsibility were on two different ends of the spectrum. Speaking of the Grand Dame, Chiyo Shuzenji was well along in her years, dressed traditionally and walking with the assistance of a cane. Regal, elegant, but Enji was beside her, as if she would fall at any moment. It shook Izuku, seeing a hero. Old. But despite her age, he could see the strength behind her eyes. She didn't say a word, but everyone, family or otherwise, treated her with the utmost reverence. Izuku jumped when Shouto appeared at his side. I've been looking for you. Would you like to meet my grandmother? Nodding mutely, Shouto took Izuku's hand and led him through the crowd to Chiyo. As soon as Shouto was in sight, she lit up. It warmed Izuku's heart. She must have missed him. And from what Izuku just learned, Shouto was her favorite grandchild. Sobo? Shouto hugged her gently. Shouto, you're home. So villainous, making your grandmother wait so long. You're lucky I'm not dead. Are you in need of a healing kiss? Chiyo was cute, immediately asking if Shouto needed a kiss to be healed of anything. No, thank you Sobo, Shouto smiled, then pulled Izuku closer. Sobo, this is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku spoke when Chiyo looked to him. Sobo, it is an honor to meet you. Shouto misses your cooking. He says that no one makes better soba than you. It was the right thing to say. Chiyo was obviously pleased. Then I'll have to teach you. I would be honored. Then you'll have to come back again. When there aren't so many prying eyes around. I know your stepfather well. If you're anything like him, then you will be a great hero. Izuku swelled with pride. He just got an invitation from Chiyo herself to make soba together when there were fewer prying eyes. Not only that, but she just told him he'd be a great hero. Toshinori told him once that Recovery Girl was one of the few people that knew about One for All because she helped with all of his injuries as a hero. When they were alone, Izuku would love to talk to her about it. Shouto squeezed his hand and sent him a proud smile. Look, they're in full bloom. The partygoers clapped as the 𝗬𝗎𝗧 unfurled their petals to reveal their beautiful, true form. The party got off to a rocky start, but Izuku redeemed himself and found himself having fun. Enji, it's good that the kid is home, but he seems different. A good different or bad different, no one at the party knew. Enji heard the whispers, and everyone was either jealous of Izuku or glad that Shouto was happy and smiling. Izuku encouraged his son to use his fire side and was someone Shouto truly loved, but that didn't change Izuku's less than desirable parentage and career goals. If it was anyone other than Hawks that pointed that out, Enji would have ruined their future. Instead, he took a moment to contemplate what the younger hero said. Enji sighed, then smirked, a plan already forming in his mind as he watched the happy couple observe the 𝗬𝗎𝗧 blooming with Chiyo. She was the most important person he needed to turn against Izuku. When children are away from home for too long, they forget who they are. Brow raising, Hawks asked, so what will you do to make him remember? My sidekicks offered to start an investigation, but I don't trust them to do it properly. But I can trust you. Enji saw the man perk up at the compliment. He was always so willing to help Enji. I'm calling in a favor. Bachelorette Party Chapter Text Shouto and Izuku. The first hint that Momo's bachelorette party was going to be no ordinary affair occurred when the driver dropped Shouto and Izuku off at a private jet terminal. The second hint was when, along with a multitude of men in attendance for the bachelor party, there were at least 20 girls who appeared as though they spent the last hour in hair and makeup. The men hanging out with that crowd were the same way. Izuku thought his outfit was nice, a white shirt and gray pants, but he now felt shabby compared to everyone else. Custom luxury cars lined up along the outside parking lot, and there were still more pulling up. Valets loaded luggage into carts, which were then taken to either a private jet or one of multiple helicopters. Izuku, I'm glad you could make it. I like your Gap look. Thanks. In place of the pajama wearing, casual Momo he'd seen a few days earlier was a completely different person. Momo was wearing a matte gold jumpsuit, makeup professionally applied, and her hair up in a gravity-defying ponytail. She was beautiful before, but this took things to another level. I have some tea I think you'll love. I know bachelorette parties are usually full of alcohol, but tea has always been my favorite. It's a rare blend from, hold on Momo. Shouto grabbed Izuku's wrist and pulled him back into a quick kiss. 36 hours. Bye. Momo, one piece, please. Yeah. Momo continued to pull Izuku along. Not even listening, Shouto shook his head with a smile. So I'm going to introduce you to my friends. We're flying to my mother's resort in Ishigaki. She's closed down the whole thing just for us this weekend. It will be a lot of fun. Come on, meet my posse. Along with some new faces, and by that, Izuku meant heroes. He didn't know personally Kyoka was there as well. And she was pretty chill when she wasn't angry with Zero. She fit the rocker aesthetic she portrayed very well when she was relaxed and not wearing luxury clothing. He didn't see Ochako anywhere, and his anxiety spiked. Momo was nice, but she had so many people vying for her attention that he didn't feel right stealing her away. He just had to hope he'd make some new friends, or that Ochako would show up soon. Everyone, this is Izuku Midoriya. Hi. As the group exchanged pleasantries, Shouto met up with Tenya on the opposite side of the terminal where the bachelor crowd was partying. So you let Ijiro organize all of this? Based on the overall atmosphere, Shouto wasn't surprised. It was a lot more disorganized than he knew Tenya would like, and louder. But the aesthetic was perfect for Ijiro Kirishima. Yeah. Ijiro, hey. The pair greeted the redhead as he bounded up to them, grinning excitedly. Don't worry, this is just the beginning. It's gonna be so cool and manly. Woo. Shouto and Tenya shared nervous looks, realizing what kind of weekend they were in for. Izuku was being introduced to many of the people, some of whom he liked more than others like 𝗧𝗬𝗧𝗏 and Itsuki Kendo. He shifted to the outskirts. He was more than aware he didn't belong. So instead of pretending like he knew how to act, he picked up some of the tea Momo recommended and listened from the sidelines. Tina, Tinny, the twins are here, everyone. Everyone flocked around the twins as they approached, arm in arm in matching outfits that mirrored each other. It's easy to make a killer entrance when you come in a matching set, a woman stated from next to Izuku. Hi, we haven't met. I'm Kami Ochoshimi. Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. So you're Shouto's boyfriend? Yeah. Word gets around fast here. You're All Might's stepson, and training to be a hero, right? Wow, word really did go around fast. Yes, what about you? I'm a hero too. But most of the time I handle legalities for UA support company. I went to college in law, so I can handle it. That's very impressive. Not really. Just nepotism. I did some hero courses with Tenya and Shouto. We're family friends. It's nice to meet you, Izuku Midoriya. You're pretty cute. Izuku blinked when Kami's eyes turned gold and almost cat-like for a split second before shifting back to normal. Probably part of her quirk. He didn't think anything of it and instead blushed when she called him cute. Wheels up in 10, everyone. Momo drove by in a golf cart. Let's do this. Let's go. Izuku and Kami loaded onto the golf cart, stumbling when it took off before they were fully seated. They shared a laugh, and Izuku was relieved to find someone who didn't seem as stuck up as some of the others. Before Izuku knew what was happening, they were loaded onto a Boeing 737-700, where he found himself in a dramatically chic space with streamlined white saddle-stitched leather sofas and glistening shagreen console tables. Momo, this is too much. Is this your dad's new plane? One of the girls asked incredulously, Toru Hagakure invisible girl based on the movement of her clothes. Actually, it's my mother's. She bought it from a man in Moscow who needed to keep a low profile. Let's hope we don't get mistaken for him. Don't worry, Mother painted it 3 times before she was satisfied with the color. There are so many shades of white, after all. Izuku wandered into the next cabin and found 2 girls chatting animatedly over glasses of champagne. Told you it was him. He's not at all what I was expecting. I mean, his family should be super rich, but he shows up looking like some. Upon noticing Izuku, the girls abruptly stopped and smiled sheepishly before fleeing down the corridor. Kami was right behind him and settled in one of the now open seats with 2 fresh glasses of champagne. Let's try to enjoy this flight in peace, yeah? Nodding, Izuku sat across from her and took one of the glasses, tipping it back. He didn't like depending on alcohol, but he didn't know how else to cope for 36 hours of gossip and feeling unworthy. 𝗧𝗐. After a dramatic landing on a perilously short runway, Izuku found himself on a sleek white catamaran, hair whipping around him as they sped towards the resort. The water was a blinding shade of turquoise, rippling under a perfect breeze. Soon, the catamaran made a sharp turn and docked. Momo was the first to get off, and the others followed her onto the beach. This is Ishigaki Island. This weekend is about sisterhood and brotherhood, connecting with the divine in all of us. So, I hope you'll all find your bliss. Starting with an all-paid shopping spree at the fashion boutique. The crowd screeched in excitement. Momo ran to Izuku and grabbed his hand, dragging him towards the fashion boutique. Momo seemed so composed the other times he had met her. But Izuku supposed a rich person would never tire of new things. The boutique was absolute chaos, as the partygoers grabbed and fought over different clothes. The males were a bit more composed, but that didn't stop them from grabbing as much as possible. Bitch, I saw this first. But you have ping pong tits. Oh, what about your mosquito bites? No. You know it's true. 1 more minute. You keep what you can carry. 1 more minute. You keep what you can carry. In the changing room, Izuku changed into the one outfit he had chosen from a rack in the back that no one else was crowding around. Inside, he heard 2 voices chatting behind the other curtains. Did you see what he was wearing? Where did he get that cheap top? Mango. How can you expect him to have any style? Think he gets it from reading the American Vogue? Actually, someone said that he's not even Japanese American. He was born here. I knew it. He has that same desperate look that all my servants have. Well, here's a chance for him to get some decent clothes at last. I don't understand why he doesn't use his stepdad's money. He's stupid not to. All Might could buy us all out. All the money in the world can't buy taste if you weren't born with it. I don't even think he'll make being a sidekick. Knowing they were talking about him, Izuku rushed out of the dressing room. Outside, he couldn't hear the rest of their conversation, and was more than thankful for it. Kami was in a new dress, putting in a pair of earrings when he stepped out. Seeing such a nice face made him feel a little better. No one loves free stuff more than rich people. Kami motioned to the surrounding violence. Just the one outfit for you? I don't want to lose an arm. Izuku winced at the carnage. No one was using their quirks, luckily. Probably some unspoken rule. In that case, one last touch. Kami picked out a watch from a display and put it on Izuku. Well, isn't Shouto a lucky guy? Time's up. Next stop, spa. Everyone screamed again. Izuku couldn't be more relieved that the spree was over. He couldn't help but wonder, if the bachelorette party was taking place on a private island resort, where was the bachelor party? The spa was 2 buildings away from the boutique, and everyone practically ran there in an attempt to grab the station they wanted most. It was at a higher altitude with a perfect view of the surrounding water. Spa time was actually enjoyable compared to the carnage of the boutique spree. Everyone was much more quiet, and Izuku couldn't remember the last time he took such time for himself and self-care. Per Kami's insistence, they were getting Thai massages together. Izuku grunted when his masseuse pressed along his spine, earning a loud series of cracks. I think my masseuse just got me pregnant, he joked, the champagne loosening his filter. Kami laughed. I can see why Shouto put off coming back last year. What do you mean? You know, he was supposed to come back and work with his father at the agency and inherit the US support company. His dad freaked out when he didn't, burnt down part of his house and everything. But now that he's back, I'm sure all is forgiven. Izuku's mind kicked into overdrive. Hitoshi had mentioned that Shouto was in line to inherit everything when he moved back to Japan. But there was Ochako and Hitoshi, or even one of the aunts or uncles. Izuku assumed that Shouto denied the position, and that's why he was still in America. But it seemed like he'd just run away. But he's not going to stay here. We're just here for the summer, and then we're going back home. He's working for an agency in America, and we have lives there, Izuku argued weakly. Izuku, I understand. It's hard knowing where you stand with someone like Shouto Todoroki, Izuku flipped, adjusting his towel while Kami continued. He has all this pressure from not only his family but hero society. Not just in his work, but in who he's dating. It's like, you never know what's going on in that gorgeous head of his. Izuku's head snapped to 𝗧𝗵𝗃 at that. She called him cute earlier, but the implications behind calling Shouto gorgeous were completely different. He told you we were together, right? It was before he realized he was gay. Ancient history, now. Although our families, especially his father, always wanted us to get married. I guess we weren't ready then. For him, it's especially obvious why. Blinking back tears of frustration and overall sadness, Izuku kept his gaze straight ahead. He didn't want to see what 𝗧𝗵𝗃's expression was if she was all too happy to tell him these things, or if it was just idle gossip. I really admire you. It takes guts, coming all the way over here, facing Shouto's family. Especially since Enji isn't exactly in your corner. Not able to take it anymore, Izuku picked up his robe and shrugged it on, rushing away from 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and the spa altogether. I heard he told 𝗧𝗏 that Shouto was a good catch. Izuku never said that, but it didn't matter. Typical. He's not even that handsome. It's like he's never even heard of plastic surgery. Oh shit. Pushing himself to move even faster, he jogged out of the spa and down the steps. Too blinded by his tears, he accidentally rammed into someone. Sorry, Izuku choked out. Izuku? It was Ochako, the one person he wanted to see all day. He turned back around to face her, not bothering to blink back his tears anymore. Izuku, Ochako cooed, disregarding her expensive outfit as she pulled him into a hug and let him cry on her shoulder. What's wrong? No, wait, let's head back to your room. We can talk on the way. Take my things to my room, please. Ochako's attendants nodded and carried on with her luggage. Arm around his shoulder, Ochako allowed Izuku to lead her to his room, and he explained everything on the way. His fears confirmed, his insecurities, what the partygoers had said about him, and to top it all off, what 𝗧𝗵𝗃 just explained. I'm so sorry. It's okay. It really wasn't, but Ochako was giving up spa time, so he felt he needed to give her some reassurance. Let's just forget about those jerks. We can camp out here and order room service. I think they have 𝗵𝗃𝗄, Izuku screeched when he was inside of his bed. On it was a large gutted fish. Blood and guts spread over the white sheets. On the windows, scrawled in red, was the words, "Catch this, you gold-digging bitch. I'll call security." No, Izuku gripped Ochako's arm tightly. I won't make a scene. I won't give them the satisfaction. Smiling proudly, Ochako nodded. Then we need a washcloth. They went to the bathroom and grabbed 2 pristine, white washcloths. Getting them wet, they avoided the bed and scrubbed over the window, until all that was left of the nasty message was little red specks here and there. However, it looked like they had committed a murder and cleaned it up with the cloths, so they disposed of them in the laundry bin. I just came here for a summer vacation. Izuku felt a deep need to get some of his feelings out. Everyone here assumes that Shouto and I are in an endgame. They're acting like we're gonna run off and tie the knot or something. You wanna know something? We haven't even talked about marriage. Do you ever think about it? Marrying Shouto. Ochako lifted one side of the sheet, and Izuku lifted the other. Shouto is the first person I've dated that I can see myself marrying. Ochako tapped the wrapped-up fish, and it floated into the air, so neither of them would have to touch it, even if it was wrapped in the soiled sheet. They passed by a confused maid. Can you get us some shovels? Ochako asked, her smile sickly sweet. Right away, ma'am. The maid ran off, and the two waited in place. Ochako turned back to Izuku. That's good. I mean, it doesn't help your case with the girls, but you and Shouto are cute, and you love each other. Here. The maid was back with 2 small shovels in record time. With the fish trailing behind them, Izuku and Ochako cleverly avoided the party crowd as they gathered on the beach to get drunk and dance to the DJ Momo had hired. They were in sight of the people, but far enough away that no one would pay them any mind. Not that they would, anyway. Using OFA at 5% to speed up the digging process, he continued his rant as Ochako worked next to him, being the shoulder he so desperately needed. This weekend was supposed to be mani-pedis, cocktails served in pineapples. This definitely wasn't on the menu. Izuku wasn't even looking forward to half of the more feminine things, nervous because it was so new. But it didn't mean he was against it. Release. Ochako dropped the fish into the hole, and they refilled it. Why would Momo even have friends like them? They're so mean. When you spend your whole life with someone, You make excuses for them. Even the morons. The two sat down in front of the refilled hole. At least Nito didn't have to deal with all those catty, fish-killing sociopaths 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗍. Why are they still so obsessed with him? Straight washing. They're so desperate for the money that they don't care. Heaven knows his father would marry him off to a woman if he could. True. At least tell me it gets better. Of course it does. Izuku wouldn't consider himself a genius when it came to other people's feelings. But he knew them well enough, and he knew something was wrong with Ochako. He nudged her gently, brows furrowing in concern. You okay? Yeah. Actually, no. You can talk to me. It was the least Izuku could do since she'd been listening to him rant since the sun set. Nito is having an affair. Out of all the things Ochako could have said, Nito having an affair was up there since something about him was slightly off. But he didn't want to actually admit it to himself since Ochako seemed so happy. I'm really sorry. Izuku wasn't sure what else he could say. Ochako managed to smile. She scooched closer to Izuku, and he wrapped an arm around her in a side hug. The weekend wasn't great, and they still had another day to go. But Izuku was sure he'd make it. Can we join you? A male voice asked. The pair looked up to see 𝗬𝗧𝗍 and Kendo, both of them looking guilty. Suspicious, but hopeful, Izuku nodded. The pair sat down in the sand next to them, shifting nervously. We're really sorry, 𝗬𝗧𝗍 finally apologized. We knew it was going to happen, but we didn't stop it. As horrible as it is, sometimes it's better to let them get the hate out of their system, Kendo added. It's not very heroic, but a lot of those people aren't at heart. Do you hate me too? Honestly, Izuku asked timidly. No, the two answered in unison. If Todoroki is happy, then who are we to get upset about it? Kendo questioned. All of them get scared when outsiders come in, because they think things will change. But maybe that's a good thing, 𝗬𝗧𝗍 sighed. Having someone here who didn't grow up rich, or hasn't lost themselves to hero politics. It's refreshing. Izuku relaxed. They were being genuine. Of course, he thought Kami was being genuine, but that might have just been his desperation to have a friend. He already knew he had enemies here, and he still felt like they were okay. Thanks. They're good people, trust me. Ochako reassured Izuku, giving him a little nudge. True heroes. 𝗬𝗧𝗍 and Kendo smiled at that. The four sat there for a little while longer, before the suggestion of going back to someone's room and watching a movie was brought up. Everyone was in favor, and they snuck off. Maybe Izuku had more people on his side than he realized. Toga, after sending the text to the rather mean and annoying girls from a group chat in Kami's phone, Toga dismissed herself from the spa without having to make up an excuse. Back in what would have been Kami's room, she shifted back into her normal self and put on fresh clothes. Kami was currently held at the League of Villains compound, sedated and memory altered, along with her memories being altered. They did extensive research on her past relating to the Todorokis, which gave Toga more than enough ammo to make Izuku's faith in his relationship with Shouto waver. Those girls are putting a dead fish in Izuku-kun's room. I hope he gets all bloody while cleaning it up. He'd be just the cutest. Toga flushed at the thought of Izuku covered in the blood. Izuku Midoriya was cute and had a good heart. She got more information from a day with him than the League did after weeks of research. They all wanted to know the potential he had to become the next All Might, and it was great. Grabbing the burner Shigaraki provided her with, she called to check in and get picked up. Is the mission complete? Yeah, I don't understand why you wanted me to break poor Izuku-kun's heart instead of cut him up a bit. Seems pointless. The first step to dismantling the dynasty of heroes that rule Japan is to take it down from the inside. Shouto Todoroki will lead them all someday, but he'll be much less capable if he's heartbroken. The same goes to Midoriya. Toga huffed all the same. I guess that kind of makes sense. Just come pick me up. All these girls are bratty, and the clothes they wear aren't even cute. Sending Kirigiri now. Good. Are you sure I can't get just a little blood from Izuku-kun? No. HMPH. You're no fun. Shouto watched anxiously as they drove Izuku off to the plane on a golf cart. He was still so new to the cruelties of behind-the-scenes hero society, innocent in a way that was uniquely him. Shouto couldn't help but fear that he had just thrown him into a den of starving lions, ready to tear him apart limb from limb. He'll be all right. Shouto. 𝗧𝗏 picked up on his anxiety. Midoriya is strong-willed and has a personality that draws people in. It would take great determination to continue disliking him after a first meeting. You're right. We should be more worried about your party. I don't think it will be awful. Ride of the Valkyries sounded off over the multiple speakers, and Ijiro had somehow found his way on top of one of the helicopters. You guys are so manly. Let's do this. No, I think it definitely will be. Those attending the bachelor party loaded into the helicopters soon after the bachelorette crowd left in the jet. It was a relatively short ride that took them to a random point in the middle of the ocean. Anyone can plan an average bachelor party. Alcohol, gambling, maybe a stripper. But I both respect women and wanted to plan something manly. Something no one has done before. And to do that, it takes a massive dude bro. Shouto covered his mic and leaned over so only 𝗧𝗏 could hear. The joke actually received a chuckle from the normally reserved man. It takes a genius. Ijiro completely missed Shouto's statement and instead shouted his own answer. The group winced as it was even louder because of their mics. Thankful it didn't cause any feedback. Where exactly is this party? 𝗧𝗏 asked, peeking out the window at the empty ocean. Right there. The entire group 𝗧𝗏, Shouto, Ijiro, and Hanta moved to the window. All of them gasped when they saw what seemed to appear out of nowhere. It astounded them that they didn't notice it before. It was massive. Holy shit, Shouto whispered. The cargo on the giant ship had been rearranged to form a giant party playground. A floating Disneyland for adults, the opposite of child-friendly fun. The choppers landed on the ship, and the groups inside stepped out to see what exactly they've been dealing with for the weekend. Yeah, Kirishima yelled, announcing their arrival. Hundreds of people screamed from below, welcoming the bachelor party to what would be their horror-based reality for the next 36 hours. Everyone but Shouto and 𝗧𝗏 were just as excited as the crowd. After their shocking landing, the group settled in a section of couches at the center of a circle of containers that had been converted into a pool and small hangout area. And by small, Shouto considered it to be the size of a single floor of an average home. Kirishima was on the stage, having fun with some other people and a giant flare gun. As soon as they settled, the family had started drinking like it was the Quirk War, and someone was going to saw their legs off. 𝗧𝗏 and Shouto were both overwhelmed and unsure of how to handle themselves in such an unstructured situation. I hope Izuku is doing okay, Shouto muttered. He knew Momo planned her own party, unlike her unfortunate fiancé. But she could be quite eccentric at times, and her bachelorette party was her best chance to do just that and go over the top. I don't know why you're worried, Shouto. You don't have to keep Midoriya happy. He's just lucky to be here. Minoru shrugged, tipping back another shot. A waiter quickly stopped by to refill it with vodka. Nice, Minoru. Shouto's eyes narrowed in displeasure. He kind of has a point, Shouto. Hanta seemed hesitant to admit it. But he had been drinking a lot, and that loosened his filter. Shouto became even more displeased when Hanta spoke up. He was way better than Minoru, and because of that Shouto hadn't expected him to cause problems. I got a lot of crap for marrying Kyoka. And not only is she a popular hero, but her family is full of famous musicians. All of us know that even though Midoriya's stepdad is All Might, he doesn't use his money or fame to rise up in social circles. Not to mention your dad hates All Might's guts. Momo's really hot, but do you think your parents would be spending millions on this wedding if her parents didn't have billions in investments? Minoru looked to 𝗧𝗏, furthering his point. Midoriya is not worth anything to us unless All Might is involved, and he's retired. So, he's worthless. Shooting up like a bullet, Shouto struggled to keep his emotions in check. The last time Shouto had been so angry was when his father drove his mother to temporary madness. Nothing after that moment compared until they insulted Izuku to his face. They're heavily intoxicated, Shouto. It's not worth it to start something, not when you'd regret it. 𝗧𝗏, we're going to start an arm wrestling competition. And you're going to join by the end of the weekend, or we're going to shave your 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃. It seemed Ijiro was tipsy too, activating his unbreakable form to stress his point of something. Shouto wasn't sure what anyone was doing at that point. Sharing identical looks, Shouto and 𝗧𝗏 walked away from the party, away from the madness. We need to get off this ship. 𝗧𝗐𝗧𝗧, you're a genius, Shouto. Thank you for this. What's a best man for? I guess that pilot's license came in handy. Shouto pulled a beer out of the cooler and gave it to Tenya. He only got a pilot's license on the off chance he'd need to use it for his hero work. But now it was useful for something else entirely. Here. After deciding together that they needed to escape, they took a chopper to the nearest island. They got a hotel room for the night, and the next morning they rented a small floating dock so they could relax together for the day before sneaking back to the boat to make a short appearance before going to bed and leaving the next morning. Everyone else was so distracted with the alcohol and everything else Kirishima planned that there'd be no one looking for the actual bachelor they were supposed to be celebrating. This drink tastes even better away from the chaos. Tenya took a second swig. Shouto nodded in agreement. I believe we'd be a fine match if I weren't marrying Momo. Chuckling, Shouto reached into his pocket. There's something that might get in the way of that plan. He'd been carrying the ring around for days, trying to make sure that Izuku didn't find it in their luggage or lying around. It had been nerve-wracking, especially since Izuku was so intelligent. But after the first few days, Shouto relaxed a bit more. If he kept his wallet and keys in his other pocket, Izuku would assume one was in the other, and not question the extra item Shouto carried. The ring itself was silver, with small diamonds encrusted along it. Simple, yet elegant. He knew Izuku would love it. When Izuku began hero work, they'd probably get tattoos instead of wearing their rings all the time. But Shouto still thought it was important to find something he could wear when they were off of work. Tenya nearly choked on his beer, eyes widening behind his glasses when he noticed what was in Shouto's hand. No. Yeah. Is that real? Yes. Congratulations, Shouto. That is amazing. I know. I'm ready. You're ready. You're doing it. That's amazing, Shouto. Tenya leaned back in his seat. Wow. Picking up on something other than joy in Tenya's tone, Shouto raised a brow. But I'm happy for you, Shouto, truly. This is a momentous occasion. I've known you since we were kids, Tenya. There's something you aren't saying. Well, it wasn't that long ago you were sure you were moving back home. And Midoriya loves his family and job in New York. We're going to figure that out. He could move to Japan once he finishes his classes. He'd love it here. It's the hero capital of the world after all. Would he leave his mother and stepfather? Shouto didn't have an answer for that. He wasn't as close to his parents as Izuku was due to restricted visits or general dislike. So he didn't understand the anxiety that came with extended separation. Ever since we were young, you were always going to be a top hero and take over US support. Maybe even lead the UA High Board. Do you think your family would be satisfied with less than that? Unless, no. Are you considering renouncing your claim on the company? Retiring early? Will you allow Minoru or Shiro to run your family's company and head the best hero school in the world? You know Fayumi or Natsuo won't take it and deal with your father all the time. I'm not renouncing anything, Shouto insisted. I met a man, fell in love, and I want to marry him. It can't be one thing or the other. Shouto, it isn't that simple. You understand that. Tenya swiped his hands through the air to accentuate his point. Family aside, have you thought about what your relationship with Izuku will be like if you got married? You're untouchable, you always have been. But Izuku is not. If he becomes Mr. Izuku Todoroki, every day for him will be a struggle. Shouto didn't think that far ahead. Izuku was more determined to be a hero than anyone he'd ever met, and he'd reach his goal no matter the cost. If he was determined to stay close to his family in America and be a hero there, would he break up with Shouto? Or even if he agreed to move and become a hero in Japan, how would they fare while running both US support and maintaining their statuses as top heroes at the same time? Sobo wasn't a field hero, so she never had much trouble balancing the work. But it would be different for the next generation. Do you think he's ready for that? Without an answer, Shouto returned the ring box to his pocket. He took a long swing of his beer and pinched the bridge of his nose. Tenya sighed, almost apologetically. I apologize, Shouto. It was unkind of me to say such things. But I don't want you or Izuku to be put through unnecessary pain by not thinking these things through. Remember the 6 P's. Proper planning prevents pitifully poor performance. I understand, Tenya. And Shouto did. He loved Izuku more than anything and wanted to marry him. But there was obviously more to the equation than he realized. Faintly, as Shouto tipped back another swig of beer, he wondered how things were going for Izuku. It couldn't be that bad for him, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗃. The next day, Shouto hurriedly entered the hotel they were staying in, relieved to be back on the mainland and away from the insane bachelor's party that he had been dragged to. He left his luggage to the side for the bellman to take back up to their room, eager to meet Izuku at the balcony seating to catch up. As soon as Shouto was in Izuku's sight, he exploded. "I thought I was here to meet your family. Go to your best friend's wedding. Research popular heroes instead. I feel like I'm a villain who's plotting to steal your family fortune." Not expecting the outburst, Shouto's heart sank. It seemed like Izuku's weekend wasn't great either. Setting his satchel bag down, Shouto sat across from Izuku. Even when he was angry, he was adorable, cheeks flushed and huffing like he was out of breath. "What happened?" I met 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Shouto winced at the name. "She told me that everyone here thinks that I'm the evil person that prevented you from moving back to Tokyo last year, when I didn't even know you were supposed to come home. You have every reason to be upset, let me mutter. There was also a gutted, bloody fish that Momo's friends left for me in my hotel room on my bed next to the words 'Catch this, you gold-digging bitch' in red paint." Having grown up knowing how conniving heroes could be, Shouto wasn't shocked, but he was extremely disappointed. The world though heroes were paradigms of goodness, but the truth was often the opposite. "Is that all that happened? Please tell me that's all that happened." Izuku continued on. "You know what? I don't even care about those stupid rich people, with their stupid little designer clothes. I don't care about that. I don't care that your ex-girlfriend told me all this crap. It's that you didn't tell me any of it. I messed up. Why? Why? What were you trying to test me? Why would you do that? I made a mistake. When we first met, you had no idea how influential my family was. You didn't care." "Yeah, I don't care about that stupid stuff," Izuku huffed. "Well, exactly. You are so different from everyone that I grew up with. And I love who I am around you. And I don't want that to change. And that's selfish, I know." "Just a little." Izuku smiled slightly. Shouto knew his anger was fading. "I'm sorry you had to go through that on your own. But I'm here now. And whatever happens, we'll get through it together, like we always do. That fish was so gross, but I buried it." "You dealt with it." Shouto's heart lightened at Izuku's confession. Tenya's concerns about how Izuku would handle their marriage had been heavy on Shouto's heart. But being reminded that Izuku was more than capable of handling hard situations made things better. "Come here." Shouto pulled Izuku into a tight hug, relishing in being so close after being away for so long. "You know what? We need to do something tonight. We need to do something that's just you and me, okay?" Izuku insisted. "I agree. But we do have to go make some dumplings first." "Okay. Then can we eat them?" "As many as you want." Grinning, Izuku snuggled into Shouto's embrace even more. "Good.